Good evening and welcome to the Council meeting. I'm Councillor Tom Bennett, the Mayor. In June 2017, 72 of our residents tragically lost their lives in the fire at Grenfell Tower. I ask every member of the Council to pay our deepest and continuing respects in the conventional manner by marking the moment with 72 seconds silence now. Would everyone please stand? Thank you. So before we get underway, I just want to briefly remind members that part of our response to the Grenfell tragedy is seeking to be the best, and that includes how we debate and how we conduct ourselves in this chamber. So of course, we're all here because we're passionate, but let's remember always to be respectful as well in all our debates and speaking within this chamber. Item 1. A slightly amended version of the minutes has been placed on members' desks. Are they agreed as a correct record? Item 2, does any member wish to declare disclosable pecuniary or other significant interest in any item being considered at tonight's meeting? No. Item 3, so special announcements. So on the 11th of September, I will be joined by a small team of councillors, council officers, the Deputy Mayor, in conducting an abseil from the heliport on top of Royal London Hospital, which is 17 floors up, to raise money for London's air ambulance charity, which, as you know, is my mayoral charity. So it's going to be a great opportunity to support a vital service that saves lives across this city every day. So if anyone would like to make a donation to us, I know Councillor North, for example, is conquering his fear of heights and joining us. So there's a lot of bravery going on. But if you would like to make a donation or support our team, we have a fundraising page, which is the RBKC Mayor's Team for London Air Ambulance. I'd also like to announce this is the last full council meeting before Doug Goldring, Director of Housing Management, retires. And I'm sure you would all join me in saying that Doug has been a dedicated servant to the residents of this borough, and that we all wish him a long and happy and healthy retirement. Now, I have a few councillors noted who wish to speak on this, so I'll start with Councillor Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, because I wanted to open the tributes to Doug Goldring tonight. Doug joined this council in late 2017, just after I'd become leader, at a time of chaos, tragedy, and uncertainty. And, you know, Doug stepped up just when other people would have stepped back. And he stepped up into a job of huge responsibility. And I know that Kim and Soph are going to talk more about his work with residents, how he steadied the ship, how he helped rebuild trust, and set out a new way of working with residents. So I'm not going to talk about that. I just want to say that without Doug, this organisation would not be where we are today. Yeah. You know, our housing management service is unrecognisable from when Doug took over in 2017. Our relationships with tenants is stronger. Our major works programme, we're getting on with bringing up our stock up to standard, and that is all down to Doug's leadership. Simply put, Doug is the best of public servants. He never seeks praise. He never hides from blame. He's utterly committed to the very highest of standards in everything he does. So he will be so much missed by councillors, by residents and officers alike. But I know he leaves a housing service which is just has such strong foundations now for the future. And if we ever want to become the best council, we have to remember who put us on that path. And Doug Goldring is really someone who I would put up as being an exemplar of everything this council would like to be. Yeah.
Councillor Simmons, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the occasion of Doug Goldring's retirement, I wish to extend a heartfelt thanks to him on behalf of the Labour Group and our constituents for all he's done for residents and for the council. Unlike the predecessors who conducted a reign of terror over our residents and whose names to this day still strike fear and dread into people's hearts, the name of Doug Goldring will live long in the RBKC collective memory as an exemplar of decency and hope, and as proof of what can be achieved when there is good faith, goodwill, and a determination to put things right. There is no denying that Doug has been a light in what was a very dark place. The affection and esteem in which he is held by residents across the borough speaks for itself, and the moving tributes from the residents at last night's TCC are a testament to this. Leaving aside for a moment the heavy lifting and huge achievements that Elizabeth has just mentioned, of starting to turn around the appalling quality of our housing stock, the fire safety and the compliance work for the post-Grenfell regulatory environment. Over the last 8 years, Doug has brought respect, decency and compassion to a place that seemed to have dispensed with such things. And this, I believe and hope, will be his overriding legacy for this council. Thank you, Doug, for all you've done. We will miss you, but we wish you a well-earned rest and a very happy retirement.
Councillor McVeigh. Oh, Councillor Taylor-Smith.
Got to turn myself on. Okay, thank you. So, yes, TCC last night was a great period of reflection, and I learned something new from TCC last night, and that's the reason why Doug joined us. And it was always suggested to me that he left Hillingdon because he wasn't happy, and maybe it was for a bigger salary. I don't know, Doug, but he said last night, he said that he left because of the shame that he had following Grenfell on the housing industry. And he wanted to come here and right what he believed to be a terrible wrong. And he came at a time when everybody else was running away. I mean, nobody wanted to come and work for this council. It was deemed to be toxic. But I think credit to Doug, he stood up and he thought this is going to come as a challenge. Anyway, so the TCC made me remember the first TCC meeting that we had back on the 11th of December 2017, which is literally a couple of weeks after Doug had joined. And he went out and he set his stall out and he said to people what he was going to do. And the first thing was the reinstatement of that TCC, which had been cancelled by the TMO because they considered the residents were all a bit too shouty. But Doug took that head on. And, I think the wonderful thing about Doug is that he sees complaints as an opportunity. It's an opportunity to get things right. And I think that's something we should all inspire to do it. And my goodness me, did we have some many difficult meetings, Doug, in those early days. You know, there was a lot of times, a lot of shouting, but I have to say that sitting there with Doug, who was always so calm and collected, you know, gave me certainly the encouragement to keep going. And it's funny, a resident said to me a couple of weeks ago, came up and he said, oh my God, why is Doug leaving? And I said, well, it's because you shout at him. And it was really funny, the look of that realization. And I think it's quite sad, actually, that the recognition of everything that Doug has done has come from the fact that he's actually leaving. Now, I know Doug would refer to the clash and say, should I stay or should I go? But I'm going to just refer to Joni Mitchell, who I'm sure you despise, which is, don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone? And I think that's very true. And I think Doug has always, I think one of the reasons we've always got on, and it's something he always says about himself, is that he's a man who's always been half full, and he always sees the things that need to be done. And I think sometimes the council and the residents are also in danger of looking at things as half full and not recognising the amazing things and the legacy that Doug is leaving us. I mean, overall satisfaction, 68%, and that's top quartile for London. And the first thing Doug says, yeah, but it needs to be higher. We need to improve on 68%. And I think that's very much something which, Doug, I very much hope we residents. So I just want to finish off by just saying that last night at the TCC, you got a standing ovation. And I think that is totally justified, given the huge contribution that you made. And as Elizabeth always said, you have been an exemplar for what we need to do to be the best council. And I can only thank you. And I managed not to mention Chelsea Football Club.
Councillor McVeigh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you to Claire, Elizabeth and Kim for everything you've said, which I think we all completely agree with. But I would just like to say a few things in the words of residents. So we've been talking about the Tenants Consultative Committee, and this is a committee, for those that don't know, that is made up of our residents in our council homes. So Doug is, in effect, their landlord. We are all the landlord, but Doug personifies that. And so to hear what they said last night was incredible. So if you just, please let me just repeat a few things of what they said. One said, sorry, I might get a bit emotional here. You wrapped your arms around us. Another, you're accessible, you cared. You inspired hope by setting standards. Another, how transformative you've been. People felt helpless and beaten down, and you marked a turning point. You came to visit us on our estate and you were horrified by what you saw. And our estate is now transformed. And the sense of hopelessness has changed. You have an amazing ability to listen and to explain in straightforward terms. Another said, you are strong and deeply human. You have incredible empathy and patience. And you're unwavering in your commitment to putting residents first. And your legacy will be never lose sight of the human story. You have huge integrity and kindness. And these are all absolutely verbatim from residents. And Mr. Mayor, if you may indulge me for a moment, Nahid from Silchester Estate wrote this absolutely beautiful ode to Doug, which we played last night. She's given me permission to try to play it here tonight through my phone, on my microphone. So let's see if it works. And it's all her words, and it's absolutely beautiful. Thank you, Nahid. So let's try this.
You came to us not seeking praise or pride, but in our darkest hour stood by our side. When smoke still clung to every street and name, and those in charge just played their quiet game, to our wounded cause your strength applied, while others turned or passed or simply lied. no noble horse, no banners in the sky, just steady hands and an unclouded eye. You faced the mess, the rot, the long neglect, and spoke the truth with grace and respect. The castle shook a little when you knocked, not with the sword, but sense and doors unlocked. You gave your time, your judgment, and your care to heal the cracks left hanging in the air. No need for fuss, you simply got things done. While others talked, you saw the battles won. Had you been met with less delay and spin, there's no telling how far you'd have got in. Had fate been fairer, who can tell how far you'd rise, perhaps to a seat among the stars. Yet even stars must take a rest from their chore. The tale concludes, though we had hoped for more. But still, you brought us amity and cleared the way, and left things better than that first grim day. You brought us far and brought us peace, a touch of justice and a sweet release. The room feels quieter now you step away, but we are better for your work and your way. The end of an era? Yes, but not in loss. The ground you cleared will not grow back with moss. You've shown what care and courage really do. We will miss, but always remember you. Take with you our thanks, too big for just one speech. And know you've left a mark that time cannot bleach. The work goes on, but this much will stay true. We'll miss you sorely and commend you too. Take also this modest, heartfelt verse. Our thanks, less golden goblet, more well-worn purse. For you have done what few would dare to try, to challenge power, yet keep spirits high.
So just to finish, if we'd all like to just stand up and give Doug a round of applause. Thank you, Doug's here. Thank you, Doug.
Excellent. Right. We must move on to the next item now. Item 4. Are there any apologies for absence or lateness from this meeting?
I have received apologies from Councillor Ahmed, Siren, Marshall, Thaxter and Wade, and I've received apologies for lateness from Councillors Adam, Aretti and Hargreaves. And
Yes, go ahead.
One apology for lateness from Councillor Benton, who will be here extremely shortly.
thank you. And sorry, could I just add apologies from Councillor Makover and Svenovic?
Thank you very much. Item 5 is public speaking. All the public speaking spots this evening have been allocated to the Borough's Youth Council, and we all welcome you here this evening. I'll invite those who have registered to speak in advance to address the council in turn for up to 5 minutes each, and then a member of the leadership team and a member of the principal minority party will then be able to respond to you for up to 2 minutes each. We have 8 people registered to speak this evening, so I would ask you to please stick to 5 minutes each, as I say, so that everyone has an equal amount of time to speak. So we'll start with Ms. Maisie Thornton. Please address the council.
My name is Maisie Thornton and I'm representing the Youth Council of RBKC, and my question is, how do the council plan on involving young people further within the council affairs to improve political literacy?
Thank you very much. Councillor Campbell, please could you respond?
Thank you, Maisie, and thank you so much for coming to speak to us tonight. And can I just say, in terms of young people having a say on the council, I think you're a fantastic exemplar of how wonderful it is to sort of have you tonight at the council. I've looked at the list of questions from young people tonight, and we've got questions on really everything, from apprenticeships and knife crime to rough sleeping and youth clubs. And for a number of years now, we've kept this full council meeting open for young people to come and ask questions. And I think the breadth and depth of what you're asking really shows us, it highlights how important it is for us here tonight, and I'm sure colleagues on both sides of the chamber would agree, for you to be able to come and ask questions tonight. More broadly, just to explain to colleagues, we have a youth council and they are democratically elected by their peers, and you meet every week, I believe, to talk about local priorities and issues. And I think that last week, Soph and Sarah both came to hear what you had to say. And over the next couple of weeks, I think you're also going to talk to the MP in Parliament. And starting last year, we started a shadowing of the leadership team so you could come and be part of the decisions we made and see how it works. And I'm always happy to hear about what more you can do. And I suggest any suggestions you have, you feed them through Sarah, and we'd be really open to it. And as I said, you're very welcome here tonight. Thank you.
Councillor Bakhtiar, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Thornton, thank you for coming and asking this important question. We have the Youth Council as our starting point, but its success depends largely on the effectiveness of its members and how widely the project is promoted and publicized. To ensure broad participation, we need to collaborate closely with schools across the borough to inform students about the timings and dates of the council and its committee meetings so they can attend to meetings or view them online. Workshops in schools are a vital part of this program and should be conducted at least once a year in all secondary schools within the borough. While digital engagement is increasingly important today, personal face-to-face interaction remains the most impactful. Additionally, the Council could explore a partnership with our schools and academies to introduce a dedicated subject in secondary schools focused on democracy and local governance in the borough and the UK. This course should be developed collaboratively with schools and academies to ensure it meets educational standards and engages students effectively. Thank you for coming again.
Thank you, Ms. Thornton, for your question. Mr. Stanley Reynolds, please would you address the council?
My name is Daniel Reynolds. I'm the lead cabinet member for Communities and Services for the Youth Council. In the 2022 Your Voice survey, 47% of young people reported that they rarely used Kensington Chelsea leisure centres. Can the council work with us to trial free or subsidised access for under 18s, especially those on free school meals?
Councillor Will, please respond.
Can I just start by saying how fantastic it is to have everyone here again? It's really, I always particularly enjoy these evenings. Stanley, thank you so much for your question. And I absolutely think it's a great question, and we are very much committed to helping young people keep active. That's really important. And so we definitely want to talk to you more. We do some things, and I'm going to give you a flavour of that, and we'll send you an email with all of that later, but very happy to look at other things as well. So we do already in our 2 leisure centres offer discounts for those under 18, which includes up to 50% discount off activity prices and further discounts for those families in receipt of benefits, which is one of the points you rightly make. During the school holidays, we offer free swimming for under 8s and swim for £1 for those under 16. As part of our Grenfell Legacy funding, we have funded free leisure centre membership for anyone who was living within 500 metres at the time of the tragedy, and that will of course include many young people like yourselves. Away from the leisure centres, we do have quite a lot of free other options for young people. I'll just give you a flavour. We have secured access to 2 football pitches at Westway Sports Centre, which can be used when they're not booked, free. We have girls skateboarding sessions at Bay 66, disability sports coach on Saturday at Kensington Leisure Centre, taekwondo at KLC on Fridays and Sundays, and women and girls swimming at Kensington Leisure Centre on Saturday. So all of those are free. And then just there's some other free access, particularly for disadvantaged young people, some other things like that we have London Knights basketball, West Side basketball, Chelsea and Westminster Swimming Club, and very importantly, cricket in Holland Park. So that's just a flavour, but again, thank you for the question, really well asked, and we are happy to talk more about if there's any particular sports or things you really feel strongly about. Thank you.
Councillor Nair, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Stanley, for your question. I think it's a number too high, 47%, not accessing our centres. We fully support, to begin with, your idea of trailing subsidised or free use of under 18, especially those on free school meals. The truth is, part of our borough, especially the north of the borough, families are being priced out of the services that should support their health and well-being. But because of, it's not just the cost, it's about inclusion. Our leisure centres must be culturally appropriate and genuinely welcoming to all young people, whatever their background, culture, and identity, or the ability. That means safe space for girls and culturally sensitive facilities, inclusive programs, and staff who respect the community they serve. Other councils have done similar initiative, and Council Chelsea should. This is the chance to create safe, inclusive, and positive spaces that give our young generation real alternative, real confidence, real belonging. We will keep working towards for a borough that truly works for every young person, not just those who can afford it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. Ms. Akira Belfin-George, would you like to address the council?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Akira Belfin-George, and I'm the Cabinet Lead of Education. And my question on behalf of the Youth Council this evening is, with degrees, work experience, and internships becoming more popular, how is the Council supporting young people in RBKC to access these opportunities, especially those who might not consider university?
Thank you. Councillor Taylor-Smith, would you like to respond?
That's a great question, Akira, and thank you for coming here to full council tonight. So as you rightly say, degree apprenticeships are becoming much, much more popular. Nationally, I understand that they're up 1% on the previous year, and 28% of those people taking them are under the age of 19. So it's very clear there's a real appetite for apprenticeships as an alternative pathway, and this is something that as a council we really do want to support and expand. And it's interesting you've come today because today I was briefed by officers on our plans to launch a new apprenticeship fund, pilot fund, that will come to leadership team later this year, which looks at a combination of supporting people financially to attend courses and working very much hand in hand with our local business improvement districts and SME employers so we can provide those opportunities for future employment. So the council is already doing an awful lot at the moment in terms of apprenticeships. We currently have 88 apprenticeships here in the council, and that includes 10 from our own schools. And in 24-25, our Children's Services Department provided employment support for 515 young people. I mean, it's a massive number, through 11 projects and programs. So our apprenticeships team do outreach with local schools and talk about apprenticeships as an alternative pathway to university, especially during National Apprenticeship Week. And I just want to touch on this February we held an apprenticeship jobs fair, which I appreciate is not specifically all about degrees, but I was delighted to, and we did it in collaboration with the TfL, but over 2,500 young people registered to attend, and over 500 opportunities were available across transport, engineering, construction, and included a lot of degree apprenticeships. So really just to conclude, we want to be there, we want to support young people into these roles and to ensure that they get the right opportunities for them. But thank you for the question.
Councillor El Nagi, would you like to respond?
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, Akira, for coming to talk to us. You are the future, as far as I'm concerned. I'm not going to talk to you here as a councillor only. I'm talking to you as a teacher. And when I became councillor, I've organized the first youth conference in the borough in 2019, and I called it No Limits, Untap Your Potential. And that was done in collaboration with UCL, with Queen Mary University, with the Department for Work and Pension, with Queen Mary University for theater and art, and with my colleagues from Texas, from the United States. And yet, we are asking and changing the whole educational framework. Apprenticeship and training, and yet universities, we try, and as an academic, I'm a university lecturer, I have organized recently the Future Fair in Nottingdale, in my ward. And I did not call it job fair. It's a future fair, because when you are trying to sort out curriculum and you try to map your career path, if you are going to plan for 5 years, how you are going to start today, which path you are going to follow. So you have to be very dynamic, very resilient in terms of your choices, and there are massive opportunities. There are great examples to lead by. And recently I organized, which I'm organizing in October, mid-October, with Brunel University, the Future Fair again, with Brunel Museum, to commemorate the life and achievement of one of the greatest engineers in the United Kingdom, Isenberg Kingdom Brunel. So you are welcome to contribute to the program, and I will be inviting so many companies, so many institutions, and come and join our journey, and you have my full support. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Belfon-George. Ms. Tarana Akavan Mazole, please may you address the council.
Good evening. My name is Tarane Akavan Masule. My question on behalf of the Youth Council is, with poverty rates in this borough rising to over 1/5 since COVID, what specific measures is the council implementing to reduce the number of young people living in poverty and to support them staying out of poverty long term? Additionally, what actions are in place to help individuals off the streets, and will these efforts be scaled up given the ongoing severity of homelessness in our community?
Councillor Thalasitas.
Thank you, and it's a really important question. I think although there's sometimes a perception that this is a very wealthy borough, and in places it is, there are pockets of serious poverty and deprivation, and part of the role of the council is trying to improve life chances for those people. In terms of what we can do to support young people, there are things that we do all the time, like trying to ensure that we have the best possible schools and give people the best chance in terms of education, and to invest in youth services, with our youth services spend one of the highest in the city. We've also tried to help families and individuals, I should say, but anybody affected by the rising cost of living in recent years. So for example, we introduced a £100 payment for 16,500 households during the cost of living crisis. We run a council tax relief scheme every year for about 14,000 households. which we've been doing for some time. And through our Fairer Action Plan recently, which Councillor Addenbrooke brought, we've been looking at how we can support low-income households even further, for example, with employment and training programs and the particular focus on social housing. In terms of tackling street homelessness, I'm pleased to say that we have one of the lowest levels of rough sleeping in London. We have a street outreach team that work with St Mungo's, who go out at night to work directly with rough sleepers and help them move into permanent accommodation. Many rough sleepers also have things like mental health issues or drug and alcohol addictions, and so we have a homelessness intervention team with mental health workers who support rough sleepers via one-to-one and group therapy to engage with substance use treatment, access, detox and rehabilitation, and we get about 8 to 10 clients at each, people, I should say, at each session. So there's a lot happening, but I completely recognise that there are lots of young people who do find things tough, and that the council needs to be able to help where it can.
Councillor Benton, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Comrade. Thank you for the question. Many of us do feel this is an issue which speaks to the very heart of iniquities in this borough and this council. The leadership do like to announce band-aids. I certainly don't think band-aids are a bad thing, but what is appropriate for a grazed knee is at best useless for a terminal degenerative disease. And make no mistake, poverty is such a disease. The most reliable indicator of poverty in Kensington and Chelsea, beyond the universal one of your parents' economic circumstances, is very clear: housing, as you brought up. And before housing costs are factored in, child poverty in the borough is 10%. Afterwards, it's just shy of 30%. Now, caveat, statistics for this borough always tend to be a bit misleading, as Councillor Thalasides has, and I welcome that he's acknowledged the discrepancies that we do have, particularly in this borough. These statistics tend to be based on averages, and we at this point say it all the time: we're the richest municipality in Europe, containing 3 of the 10 most deprived wards, and this borough ranks as the single most clustered in terms of the richest and the poorest in England. In other words, the starkest north-south divide in the country. We could look at these things ward by ward, and it would paint a darker picture, but I'm going to be generous. In this borough, we have 11,802 unused homes. That's more than 1 in 8. The majority, if not the entirety, are in the private rental sector, which leads to the inevitable question: if this council is committed to alleviating poverty, child poverty, generational poverty, all kinds of poverty, where are the aggressive measures necessary to combat the worst excesses of society's true scroungers and parasites, the property owners who get fat keeping homes empty, pressuring every sector of the housing market, and inevitably keeping a boot on the throats of the poor, the vulnerable, the working class? Now, these are free marketeers at the end of the day. We know that. Making the line go up will always take precedence over supporting the people who actually make this community what it is. But
could you just conclude your remarks, please, Councillor Benton?
Not only are there no policies in place to tackle this, or the roots of poverty, the council actually rejects it. We actually have the power to double council tax on these empty properties, which would bring in at least 11 million, but instead of taking that opportunity, they will cut frontline services, and even the Band-Aid budget gets lowered. Whatever mental gymnastics we are meant to accept, this shows exactly what it looks like it shows. They work for the parasites at the top,
please conclude.
Off what we, the people of Kensington and Chelsea, built, hoarding what we need to live. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Marzaleh. Just pause one moment. Ms. Sue Arslan-Dogan, please address the council.
Hello, my name is Sue Arslan-Dogan, and on behalf of the RBKC Youth Council, I will be asking this question. With over 15,000 knife crime-related offences recorded in London between 2023 and 2024, and with incidents involving gangs and knives happening right outside schools, including in places where there are taken advantage of CCTV blind spots and quiet times, what is the Council doing to make young people feel safer in their communities and around their schools? What specific actions will be taken to prevent these incidents and protect us where we live and learn?
Councillor Addenbrooke.
Thank you. Sue, thank you very much for coming this evening to raise this really serious issue. I know the Youth Council are really interested in this topic, so we share your concerns about youth violence as it affects the safety and well-being of our whole community. So in recent incidents have brought this into sharp focus, and addressing it remains a top priority for us and the Safer KNC Partnership Board. We have a strategic, if I could say it, response via the Serious Youth Violence Strategy, which focuses on 3 separate areas to be addressed to make the borough safer from violence. Our operational response includes weekly tasking meetings with the police to identify areas of concern and put additional resources into those areas. Young people have told us that they feel especially vulnerable after school. So this is when the Council's detached an outreach team deliver their youth outreach work, putting Council staff in places where children tell us they feel unsafe. Following an increase in violent crime in Goldring ward, we increased our CCTV cameras in the area, working with the police and residents to agree the best places for them to be installed. And we are in the process of installing a knife bin outside the fire station on Ladbroke Grove, and I know one of you asked that question when we went to the House of Commons recently. Our Youth Violence Reduction Team and Youth Justice Service includes a targeted prevention scheme who work with young people not in education. And Community Safety fund 4 different youth crime services, working with children at risk of harm from violent crime. We also have It Takes a Village project, which brings together community organisations, parents, children and statutory services to make sure our local approach to reducing violence brings all the different support together. And the Youth Participation Team, Community Safety Team and the new Youth MP, who you elected last week, have reached out to local schools offering to deliver a range of talks beginning in September on serious youth violence, providing updates on current issues in the borough and discussing possible solutions. So to keep the momentum with this work, we are planning a summit on youth violence in the autumn.
Please could you conclude your remarks?
And we would love to work with the Youth Council to make it a success. And finally, the Community Safety Team and I would be very happy to attend a Youth Council meeting to discuss this in more detail and hear from you what matters to you most. Thank you.
Councillor Nur.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Surel, for coming this evening and asking this urgent question. Over 15,000 knife crimes in London last year, and yes, some happened right outside our schools and our streets, including some of the safest area. Our young generation don't have to plan their route to school based on fear. The Council has installed, in consultation with our community safety team and the police, some CCTV cameras, particularly in Goldring, where I'm serving councillor. But this is not enough, and short-term patrols by the police is not a long-term solution. We need youth-led safety plan, not just cameras. Our young generation must shape it, that plan. Invest in youth services. I have to admit our youth services are currently supported through council funding and partnership with Young KNC, which is registered charity, and other voluntary sector organizations. It is fair to say youth service is supported to compare to our neighboring boroughs. Opportunities that inspire our youth, like the idea you suggested, youth enterprise, is very welcome and needed. We need a youth voice in decision making, but to make a real difference. This is more than a safety issue. It is about trust, opportunity, respect. Let's keep fighting to change with you, not just for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question, Ms. Dogan. Ms. Salwa Abdi, please address the Council.
Good evening. My name is Salwa Ahmed Abdi, and I'm the former Deputy Youth Mayor for the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea. And my question in behalf of the Youth Council is, good quality food is now very expensive, especially for households with medium or lower earnings. How does the Council plan to help people here afford basic necessities? Thank you.
Councillor Kamali.
So thank you for coming in, and thank you for that question. I think they've all been great questions, but I think that's one of the most profound, because being able to afford basic necessities is just the beginning point of life, right? We need to make sure that we as politicians are keeping those costs down as best as we can. We have lots of different ways we've tried to do that. We obviously try and keep council tax as low as possible. We're the 4th cheapest in London. That means more money in your parents' pockets to buy food and buy the things that you need and things that they need. We've also, as Councillor Thalasitis mentions, we ran a programme of giving £100 to over 16,000 families. But we're pushing against the tide. We saw today's inflation figures, again, 3.6%. Doesn't sound like a lot, but if you look at something like sort of the price of a pint of milk, before COVID, it was 50% cheaper. So when you think just your weekly shop is 50% more expensive than it was just 5-6 years ago, of course, everyone that was just about managing is now really struggling to manage, and it's our role as politicians and as the council to try and help people through apprenticeships, through jobs, but also just by keeping money in people's pockets as best we can, whilst offering all the services that we've touched on with your other questions. We're really proud that we're helping with people on free school meals, but we're now also extending that outside of term time through the holidays. And we're really working with individual charities and organisations that know just who to reach. But I think it goes beyond just those people that we've already heard from or people that already receive benefits. It's absolutely everyone is feeling inflation. And so it's really on us and colleagues, national parliament, local parliament, all over this country, to really make sure that every time we put up council tax or we put up a charge, we've really justified it, and it is for the services that you all use and we all use. They have to be worth spending money on. So we'll keep making sure that we keep it as low as possible, but I'm just sorry we haven't done a better job nationally. So.
Councillor Ali.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. May I first of all thank you, Salwa, and everyone else who came to this evening to ask questions. So once again, please join me, the Council, to thank who asked questions and who will be asking questions later on. About the food scarcity, absolutely food and the cost of living crisis is a real issue that has been happening since COVID and beyond the cost of living crisis. This Council, including hundred agencies, have been referring to the food banks. For example, 7,000 residents have been supported by Kensington and Chelsea food banks. However, this Council has not been supporting that organisation that I have been informed reliably. The food bank is another solution, for example, those who are in need. And once again, all of you are asking questions on behalf of the Youth Council, and that is really, really important. And this question about the food bank and food insecurity, whether it's really good quality, expensive foods that everyone should be, that needed that nutrients to live a healthy life, healthy minds and healthy body, to provide services for our borough and beyond when you grow up and we're at this age of life. So my point is the Youth Council, you've been supporting, but the question is we put pressure on the policymakers and on this note on the council leaders, the Conservative council leaders, to really put the resources where it should be, and to support and local food providers, and to support organizations that are doing everything they can to support. But my actual other question is, they have also asked about education. You came here to ask about education. That's what we need. Good, well-paid jobs that can provide food, a decent food, shelter, housing, all need a good education. And for that reason, we will be putting a motion later on, and we have actually put it in the record, that we will be establishing a Grenfell Scholarship to support to get good education, so you can pay for your housing, you can pay for your good services, you can pay for decent food when you grow up, and that's what we want to do. If this council fails to do that, we will come into the Youth Council to support that Grenfell Scholarship motion, which will allow you to get a good jobs so that no one relies on to get food support from the borough or anyone else. Once again, thank you very much for coming, and we appreciate for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Abdi. Ms. Maya Abawana, please address the council.
Hello and good evening. My name is Maya Abu Amna and I'm speaking on behalf of RBKC's Youth Council. And my question is, in the UK there are still 4,630 buildings that have dangerous cladding. We would like to know how many buildings in Kensington and Chelsea still have this dangerous cladding, and what is the timeline for removing this cladding, and how can this information be made easier for young people to find and understand?
Councillor McVeigh.
Thank you, Maya. That's a really important question, and especially so in Kensington and Chelsea. Before I answer, I'd just like to thank you all for coming. I think you've all spoken so eloquently, and you've really thought about your questions, and I hope you stay involved in democracy in one way or another. So, back to your question, I can confirm that there are no council buildings in Kensington and Chelsea have dangerous cladding. However, there are some buildings, non-council buildings, that do. But good progress has been made in Kensington and Chelsea on them, with remediation of these buildings as part of the government's remediation scheme. There remains 9 buildings yet to complete remediation. All of these buildings have fire safety mitigation measures in place, which is absolutely essential to keep residents safe. But the speed with which the works are progressing is far too slow, and the landlords need to do more and more quickly. So from a council point of view, we are working with government and the regulatory partners to ensure that the government's remediation acceleration plan is adhered to. So that's rather kind of long-winded, but what that means is that by the end of 2029, all 18 metres high buildings with unsafe cladding in government-funded schemes have to have been remediated. And again, by the end of 2029, slightly lower buildings, so they're 11 metres high, with unsafe cladding, have to be remediated, or landlords really will face very severe penalties. So I hope that has reassured you, at least regarding our council buildings. Thank you.
Councillor Simmons.
Thank you very much, and thank you for coming and raising this really important issue with the Council. In preparing an answer for you, I have checked with the council officers in this council and also with the Department for Housing, Communities and Local Government in central government. And I won't repeat the numbers that Councillor McVeigh has said, but I can say to you that I have verified these myself. So that's 9 buildings in the whole borough which are not remediated. Now, your question is asking also why that is and what's the timeline for removing. So you've heard the timeline for removing that cladding, but I've also asked why these buildings haven't been remediated, and that is because they are not owned by the council, they are owned by third parties or even social housing providers, which I personally find quite worrying. But the fact is that social housing providers have varying capabilities and access to funding. There are sometimes disputes between developers and freeholders around the scope of works, and also we have in this country a lack of skilled professionals, which means there aren't enough remediation providers and regulatory approvers within the industry to meet that demand. And I will just say this really does highlight the failure of the government in the 8 years since Grenfell to get a grip on this issue, and the magnitude of the failure of the government in the 10 years before Grenfell that allowed the industry to sink so far to the bottom. Councillor McVeigh has said what the Council is doing, but I see there's a point at the end of your question, which is how can this information be made easier for young people to find and understand? And I would like to suggest to the leadership over there that perhaps there could be a web page on the council website when you click on Grenfell, which is one of the top icons, which could lead you straight to that information. And I'm sure a lot of us would find that very helpful. And it also may focus minds to know that we and you are looking at this and watching with interest. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you, Ms. Abouana, for your question. Mr. Gustave Petit, please address the council.
Good evening. My name is Gustave Petit, and I'll be asking you this question on behalf of the Youth Council. How do the council plan to develop school subjects and youth club activities to prepare young people for adulthood as best as possible?
Councillor Folkes.
Gustav, thank you so much for coming to speak tonight, and thank all of you from the Youth Council as well for welcoming Sarah and myself to your meeting last week, where we had some really interesting discussions. And as Sof said, it's great that you're taking part in local democracy, because that's really important. So I think a lot of you were probably involved in the review and the consultation we did about our youth clubs and how we should spend our 4.75 million that we've committed to over the next 5 years, one of the highest in the country, to providing and continue providing youth clubs in this borough. And one of the top things that came back to us from all of you was that we need to prepare people for adulthood, for jobs, for skills, and for activities like that. And that was a really important consideration that we took into when we allocated those grants. So now you'll see in our youth clubs a lot of those programs already happening. And it might be through fitness. A lot of the clubs do fitness. That helps you with resilience. Through after-school learning, Clement James and Into University do incredible support and mentoring for that sort of thing. And look at Earls Court Youth Club, where they have a programme on future ambitions and careers coaching. And on the Our City website, which we talked about last week, all these things are listed. So I really recommend you go onto the Our City website to see what our youth clubs have to offer. And you also said at that meeting that you thought our website delivery or telling you about it was really bad, so I want your help on that. On the school's financial education, we also recognise that preparing for adulthood is really important. And just so you know that financial education is actually part of secondary school's requirement in Key Stage 3 and 4. So there is a lot there. But schools also have access to other support from banks and local charities to do financial education support, which we agree is really important to understand. Thank you.
Councillor El-Nagi.
Yes, good evening and welcome again. Gustav, thank you for this wonderful question. It's always close to my heart regarding curriculum development because that's what we learn from students through their experience. And on that note, maybe you remember Isaac Newton Center in North Kensington. If not, do some research, Gustav, in your youth council. And I would love to hear your welcome on its role in terms of professional development for those who are delivering education in schools. I was on the editing committee for SMILE, which is a secondary mathematics individualized learning experience, which doesn't exist now at the moment. That was in the early 90s with the Institute of Education. So preparing for development and regarding curriculum development, this is where teachers within the 5-year cycle of their GCSE education will change the curriculum. And I was member of that editing committee with the Institute of Education, which is now part of the University College London. On that note, regarding club activities and after-school curriculum, you are absolutely right, because this is where you realize your full potential, rather than prescribe curriculum for you to be educated in the school. That's exactly what's happened in Netherlands. In that part of the world, they have shorter time for schools, where children and young adults, they go out and explore and bring their experience into the classroom for debate, for critical thinking. And that's exactly, I think, what you are after. Regarding the youth club and activities and their provision, what's happening here, actually this is for you to decide on, and I'm happy to come to your committee to talk and collaborate. And to finish off, Mr. Speaker, I have more than 35 of my students at the moment, over the last 4 years, master's students, working with me on different projects in my ward, in my council. Thank you so much, Costa, for coming.
Well, thank you, Mr. Petit, and thank you to the whole Youth Council for all your questions tonight, for joining us here, as well as for all you do for young people in our borough. We now move on to item 6, petitions. I believe Councillor North has a petition he wants to read out on behalf of residents. Councillor North, please could you read the prayer of the petition?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm presenting this petition on behalf of the Holland Street Village Residents Association, who are opposing the installation of the railings by 40 Gordon Place in W8, and they request that the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea urgently reviews this case. They ask, help us to oppose the railings that have been installed at 40 Gordon Place. The railings were recently installed outside the shop on the corner of Gordon Place and Holland Street, diagonally opposite the well-known Elephant and Castle pub. The location of the railings blocks the pavement, which has been used by the public for many decades. The railings have been installed despite a similar proposal that was declined permission in 2024. The railings have been installed in a conservation area without regard to the look and feel of the neighbourhood, and they request that the RBKC urgently reopens this case to reassess their decision not to classify the land in front of the shop at 40 Gordon Place as a public right-of-way, which it has, after decades of public use, almost certainly been presumed of. The precedent of these railings, if allowed to remain in place, is dangerous and would lead to many more such railings being installed across the area, denying more rights-of-way to the public. Their residents are asked to please sign this petition to help us overturn RBK's land designation of 40 Gordon Place, to protect the streets from landowners trying to take away public rights away, and to protect the cherished look and feel of our Kensington conservation area. And I'm pleased to support this petition and present it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor North. Item 7. I now invite the Leader of the Council to address the meeting for up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I want to start again by thanking the Youth Council for being here tonight, but I think they may have gone. But it really is inspiring to see such a passionate group of young people, not just interested in politics, but actually shaping it. And planning is already underway for how their budget's going to be spent, and I know that they're going to use it to drive real change. And as I said, the Youth Council have already made their voices heard in the most important places, whether it's with the leadership team or in Parliament, and they will be challenging decisions that affect their future, and that matters. And Mr. Mayor, it matters really because budgets across the borough are under pressure, and that will include youth and children's services. Our outlook is suddenly deeply, deeply worrying. Over the past 2 weeks, I've been working with colleagues across London to challenge a new government funding formula that could strip £1.5 billion from services for children and youth services across the capital. Young people that live, work and learn in this capital city. And here in Kensington and Chelsea, the figures are stark. £82 million to find over the next 3 years, a budget gap at a scale that we have simply never faced before. And let's be clear, Mr. Mayor, this isn't just a number. This would have a devastating impact on the services that support our young people. Our children's centres, youth clubs, mental health services and care leaver supports aren't just nice-to-haves. They're there to give people a chance in life to help them get ahead. Council services and support help to give children safety, stability and opportunity. If these cuts go ahead, we will face deeply, deeply painful choices. Our early years services, which focus on those crucial first 1,000 days, could be reduced. Children's centres may close. Support for parents might shrink. Fewer health checks, fewer interventions, less prevention, more children slipping through the cracks before they've even started school. Our youth services, something we are incredibly proud of, will also come under question. We fund youth workers, safe spaces, mentoring, skills training. Those with special educational needs, in care or at risk. These are children who might feel the cuts the most. We already stretch every penny to support them. With £82 million less, we will face impossible and heartbreaking decisions. Now, this council has always believed in prevention, in acting early, not too late. But this new funding formula threatens to undo all that we have built, putting services, communities, and young lives in jeopardy. So, Mr. Mayor, a message for our Youth Council. You matter, and work with us to talk to government, make the case for this borough, and make the case for London and young people growing up in London. Help us send a message to the government. This is not just about numbers, this is about futures. Kensington and Chelsea may be seen as wealthy, but we are one of the most unequal boroughs in this country. Wealthy residents do not automatically make a wealthy council. Our children here in Kensington and Chelsea deserve the same chance, the same support, and the same investment as children anywhere else in Britain. So let's fight for that together. Thank you.
Councillor Ali, please respond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we have heard this evening from our youth, the youth in our borough, the young people in our borough are indeed in need of support, ranging from food, energy insecurity, education, and skills for life, so that they can get in the future well-paid jobs for themselves and their future and their families in the future. We understand the rising cost of living continues to put significant pressure on many of our residents in Kensington and Chelsea. The number of food banks, Mr. Mayor, in our borough has significantly increased since COVID 2019 and related cost of living crisis. We recognize the vital role for food banks have been supporting in our affected local community by economic hardship. According to the most recent statistics from Kensington and Chelsea food banks, the number of food banks the number of residents in need of support of food has doubled from last 3 years, rising from 2,955 clients in 2021-2022 to 6,901 to 2024-2025, and it's still counting. That's an increase of 133%. That is absolutely unacceptable and a staggering situation. In 2024-2025 alone, 2,079 food vouchers have been issued, and one specific cost of living crisis, which was simply the essentials, to buy the essentials for families. I understand, Mr. Mayor, this has been a really difficult situation for our residents. This sharp rise shows that the widespread financial insecurity that has become not only for those who are out of work, but those who are in work in our borough. Mr. Mayor, the Economist article referred to our borough in Kensington and Chelsea as a wealthy but deeply divided borough, and is referred to Grenfell Tower disaster and the Grenfell Tower fire becoming a stark reminder of glaring gap between rich and poor and the wealthiest borough of London. Mr. Mayor, symptoms are manifestations of underlying issues, while the root cause of underlying reasons are actually those symptoms. Economic inequality in our borough and the gap between the rich and poor, also among other issues, are the root causes of food poverty in our borough, and that's why we have heard the need of support this evening. The council leadership, Mr. Mayor, should be addressing these economic inequalities. Despite the heavy cuts that we have heard about, they should be definitely taking the leadership and to deal with inequality in our borough and target the support for residents who are in need of support, not just handouts, but create local jobs, work with the local businesses, as well as supporting the youth for their education. An example, to give them an opportunity for good scholarships that we have put forward with the Grenfell Scholarship, to give them a brighter future so that they can be equipped with the education they want to have a better future, and so also to be the leaders in their chosen fields, as well as could be the leaders of our borough one day, Mr. Mayor. Another significant issue for our residents is the housing and planning, which I had the pleasure of meeting the new lead member for planning, and we spoke about other issues, including in my ward and beyond. We are supporting the building and homes in our borough, for example, the council gaswork development. However, we cannot support the proposal council gaswork development as in its current form for the following reasons: an inadequate provision of social, affordable, and key worker homes, Mr. Mayor. That's one condition. The reason being for that, the current proposal fails to meet the local borough's housing policy, as well as the Greater London Authority's 35% affordable housing in the new developments. With over 3,000 households currently in our council's waiting list, it's absolutely unacceptable for the large-scale development to take place in our borough, with only to deliver fewer than 20% homes, social homes, and the key workers for our borough in need. This shortfall, Mr. Mayor, undermines our effort to address the homelessness and housing insecurity in our borough. Other concerns include excessive high building of height, which is nearly 100 meters, as well as the health risks associated with the soil contamination, lack of comprehensive transport plan, loss of natural light and existing residents, Mr. Mayor, as well as increased noise and light pollution for the new development. In conclusion, Mr. Mayor, we, the Labour Group of Councillors, will support if the Council's leadership takes the appropriate scale development with the following conditions: a maximum of a height of 15 to 16 stories, not exceeding 50 meters, as well as including a second staircase for emergency evacuations. We all know what happened at the Grenfell Tower. We do not want people to be trapped in case of, God forbid, a fire again in our borough or anywhere else in the country. And the protection of the natural sunlight for the neighbouring properties, in particular the council house, which is a grade 2 building. Strict controls to prevent light and noise pollution, a robust detailed transport infrastructure plan, as well as providing a provision of at least 35 to 50 social, affordable, and key worker homes. That's what we're desperately in need, Mr. Mayor. What the leader of the council have mentioned, we in the Labour Group are indeed in support of reaching the government and working with the council hand in hand, providing that they take opportunities for when we put forward programs and in support of borough. Everyone who's affected in our borough will be felt, and that's why we want to work hand in hand, providing they will support the motions that we put forward to increase the living standard of our borough. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Item 8. In accordance with standing orders, I rule that the order of business shall be as published. Item 9. There are no reports from the leadership team. Item 10, reports from council side committees. I have 2 reports. First, would Councillor Hargreaves propose and Councillor Simmons second the reception of the annual report of the Audit and Transparency Committee?
I wish to propose.
I wish to second.
Would Councillor Hargreaves like to speak to the report?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And in presenting this report this evening, I would like to draw members' attention to some of the key aspects of the work that we've done that is contained in the report, which reflects the range of work that the committee has done during the year that the report is referring to. Paragraph 2.4 of the report gives details of the committee meetings and a range of topics that the committee considered during the year. Key to that is the ongoing work through the year that we do in respect to the Council's statement of accounts. And for those members, and I realise there are probably many of them, who are very keen on this topic, you'll be aware of the challenging financial climate that the Council faces and the significant problems that some councils across the country have found themselves in. Often at the core of these problems are poor investment decisions and a failure to adhere to appropriate accounting policies and standards. And members may be aware that the local government accounting system is going through huge change at the moment, which will have a massive impact on the way that we run our accounts in this council and indeed in others. But I'm pleased to say that in Kensington and Chelsea, we have an excellent record in producing timely and accurate records, and this year was no exception. In their report, our external auditors commented yet again, our accounting and supporting paperwork was of the highest standard, and we were amongst the first of the councils in London, or local authorities in London, to complete the audit sign-off of its accounts for the financial year 2024 through 23-24. And of course, I would like to claim that that's all down to the work of my committee, but actually, we have to thank the lead member for finance, then Councillor Tharcitis, and the Executive Director for Resources, Mike Curtis, and the finance team for the excellent work that they do throughout the year in managing and submitting our accounts. As a council, we have a very robust internal audit team, and it is the committee's role to review the work and reports that they produce. This helps give us, and hopefully the reassurance of the council, of how the council is performing in a number of areas they select and they audit, and the actions that they recommend are being taken and implemented. A robust risk management strategy is also key to a well-run organisation. And during the year, the committee received regular reports on risk issues across the council. And in addition, we met with the Chief Executive to discuss the council's approach to assessing and managing risk. We also conducted a number of deep dives into certain topics to help us understand the effectiveness of risk management within the borough. Reviewing and hearing complaints against members is also another key aspect of the committee's work. And it is crucial that we as councillors and public servants hold ourselves to the highest possible standards in the way that we conduct ourselves when we're going about our business. And paragraph 3 of the report gives details of complaints referred to the committee. And we've discussed this in a recent council meeting, and once again, I would like to thank Laverne Parker and the borough's Chief Monitoring Officer and her team for the enormous amount of work, and you will see a figure in that report of what it costs the council to do this, an enormous amount of time and energy that they put into managing these complaints. So following on the work that we undertook, following on from this work, we undertook a review of effectiveness of the committee. And from the review, we developed a number of specific actions. And this came out of the response, the council-wide response to the Grenfell Inquiry Phase 2 report. And we looked at that in particular reference to the work that we do within our committee. And we made several recommendations about how we relate to the council, how we hold directors accountable, and how to gain more value from deep dive reviews and work on our agenda planning. So I've only time to focus on a few of the key aspects of the committee's work, and the report you have in front of you goes into much more details. But I would like to thank David Hughes, Director of Audit, Fraud, Risk and Insurance, and Yusuf Olo from the governance team for their hard work in supporting our committee during the year. I mentioned the importance of the contribution made by 3 external members of the committee earlier on, and I would like to thank them and my fellow councillors on the committee for their hard and diligent work in this very important part of the council's work. Mr. Mayor, I have pleasure in presenting this report to the council this evening. Thank you.
Councillor Simmons, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I would. I'm very pleased and happy to be seconding this report, and I would like to thank the Chair for the report itself, but also for his excellent and dynamic stewardship of this committee over the last year. I would also like to give a special thanks to the independent members of the committee, whose expertise and diligence is so incredibly valuable to this committee's work. The review of effectiveness, in particular, is an important innovation which yielded valuable insights and constructive ways that the committee's work can be further strengthened and improved, including raising the profile and understanding of audit within the council, which I think the Chair is doing a fantastic job. In particular, that review discussed the relationship between audit and scrutiny, And on that, I would like to note that we are still awaiting for OSC to scrutinise Grenfell spending, since this committee agreed in October 2023, after our 4th audit report on the subject, that this should be referred to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. On the other hand, we are the Audit and Transparency Committee, so perhaps there is a transparency piece of work that we could usefully do if the Overview and Scrutiny Committee is unable to take this up for whatever reason. On the subject of audit planning, it is worth noting that while the number of items with limited or nil assurance is low, this number includes housing allocations, and the committee has commented on some limitations of the methodology there also. I therefore hope, given the importance of this in the context of the feedback following the Grenfell Tower inquiry report, including the perception of incentives and reprisals, that a full and transparent audit of housing allocations will be conducted for the assurance of the committee and the public. On the subject of councillor conduct, which has taken up a significant amount of the committee's and officers' time again this year, I wish to pose the following question to the council for us all to consider. To what extent is the Constitution and Councillor Code of Conduct effective in addressing, for instance, the pervasive contempt in which minority councillors and their wards are held by the leadership of this council? When we are not talking about a discrete and isolated incident to be investigated, or even 6 isolated incidents, but a pervasive culture hidden most of the time behind superficial politeness that has infected this council over decades and appears to be immune to all efforts to change it. The impunity that lead members seem to enjoy in this regard tells me that the Constitution and Code of Conduct are not effective where the breaches are too widespread, too normalised and too embedded for existing structures to address. So what can this committee do, and what can the council as a whole do to address this issue, which in practice amounts to a subversion of democracy itself? The delivery of the council's commitments following the Grenfell Tower inquiry report is dependent on this issue being addressed, so it is absolutely imperative that we as a council acknowledge and engage with the problem. I know that when you are accustomed to impunity, accountability must feel like a great impertinence, but accountability there surely must be if we are, as a council, to keep our promises to residents. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Would any other member like to speak on this item? Councillor Yankson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too would like to add my thanks to 3 parties that have really helped with the Audit and Transparency Committee this year. The 3 independent members perform an absolutely fantastic and vital function. They hold us as councillors to account, and also the officers, to make sure that we are getting transparent answers that our residents demand. Secondly, I'd like to thank all of the hard work that the officers have put in relation to the financial planning and running of this council. It's a very, very complex organisation with lots and lots of government functions that we have to perform, and I have to commend the officers again for all of their hard work and dedication on answering our questions, answering the questions of the independent panel members, and answering the questions of the opposition when they ask difficult questions. As far as I'm concerned, it's been absolutely fantastic and very transparent. And finally, I'd like to commend the chair of the committee this year for the way that he has made sure that there are no stones unturned. Everybody gets plenty of time to ask detailed and difficult questions. Finance is extremely important, not just for residents, but for the council to deliver its services. And I would also commend the chair for his excellent work over the years that he's been running the committee. And finally, I'll say one point that isn't in the report, but audit and transparency. One resident contacted me because they were unsure and unclear on a particular aspect of the council's finances. I then pushed that thing straight to the leader of the council, and Councillor Kamali actually met with the resident and had detailed discussions, and that resident is now happy with the transparency that they have provided. So even though we may find that we've got work to do to be the best council, I would like to commend this report to the whole council chamber because I feel that we are transparent, we do provide good value for money, and that is, of course, in the reports by Grant Thornton. So I would also support this report to the House. Thank you.
Would any other member like to speak? Councillor Hargreaves, would you like to sum up?
Go straight to our vote. Thank you very much.
So we'll now vote on whether the Council agrees to note the annual report. Can I see all those in favour? I think that's unanimous, but just in case, all those against? And any abstentions? I declare the report noted. Second, would Councillor Addenbrooke propose and Councillor Taylor-Smith second, formally, the reception of the report from the Administration Committee?
I wish to propose, Mr. Mayor.
And I'm happy to second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Addenbrooke, would you like to speak to the report?
I don't think there's any need, Mr. Mayor.
Does any other member wish to speak to the report? In which case, we'll move to a vote. And the question is, does the Council agree with the recommendations as set out in the agenda pack? Can I see all those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? In which case, I declare the recommendations approved. Item 11 is reports from overview and scrutiny and select committees. And I've been notified of a report from the pithily named Inner West London Mental Health Services Reconfiguration Joint Health Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Would Councillor Knight formally propose the report's reception and Councillor Wheel second?
Yes. I beg to second.
Thank you very much. Councillor Knight, would you like to speak to the report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to take a few minutes to reflect on the work of the Joint Health Overview and Scrutiny Committee formed by Kensington, Chelsea and Westminster to scrutinise the proposed changes to mental health services, including the Gordon Hospital, St Charles and our wider provision. This work followed the closure of 51 acute mental health beds at the Gordon Hospital during the pandemic, a closure initially described as temporary, but which, like the Pembridge Palliative Care Centre, felt increasingly permanent, placing significant pressure on our local services and voluntary sector, whilst any prospect of its reopening remained vague and delayed. Over nearly 2 years, the JOSC met 8 times. We heard extensive evidence from the NHS, the voluntary and community sector, patients, carers, and independent experts. We challenged the data, the assumptions and the models presented, and we made space for the voices of those who had not felt heard and whose insight was vital to shaping such significant change. Early on, I was told challenging the NHS was pointless, and that once it had preferred option, it was unlikely to shift. But we rose to the challenge, we laid out a clear evidence-based case, and stayed focused on what we believed was right for residents, even when the process felt frustrating and progress was uncertain. One point we were clear on throughout was that community mental health services are vital, but they cannot come at the cost of acute inpatient beds. Although we might want to be, we are not at that stage, especially now with a growing mental health crisis, particularly amongst our young people. The need for acute crisis and community care to work together has never been greater. These services serve different purposes and all must be properly funded to meet the scale of the need we are seeing. That's why protecting local services like the MCAS and securing return of inpatient beds mattered so much. It was about making sure our residents had access to care when and where they needed it most, and easing strain on our overstretched system. The outcome is not everything we fought for, but it's meaningful. 10 beds, 5 crisis, 5 step down, will be reopened at Westminster, whilst we help relieve pressure on our acute mental health services and wards at St Charles, which have been operating at unsafe levels of 98% capacity. And the MCAS will remain at St Charles despite initial plans to move it. This service has been a lifeline to many in our community and to overstretched A&Es, and its continued presence will be especially vital in the coming years as North Kensington and the Grenfell community face the deeply sensitive period of the tower coming down. And with NHS England now planning to roll out similar crisis centres nationally, based on this model trialled here, it's encouraging to see that our local fight reflected in wider change. We may not claim sole credit, but it shows how determined scrutiny can help shift national direction. I believe this was one of the most complex and demanding pieces of scrutiny either council has undertaken in recent years, but also one of the most collaborative. I had the privilege of working alongside Councillor Ahmed, whose experience as a psychiatrist helped us challenge assumptions that didn't always reflect clinical or frontline realities. Councillor Sarin, who ensured the voices of the voluntary and community sector were brought into the room, and of course Councillor Albert, who I co-chaired this committee with, and whose integrity, skill and grace guided through these meetings that were often incredibly challenging. I also want to acknowledge the 3 Westminster councillors on this committee, especially Councillor Arundel, who sadly passed away during the process. Her voice was a powerful advocate for Westminster's homeless community, and her contributions left a lasting impact. We were also supported by outstanding officers, Jackie Hurd, James Diamond, Claire O'Keefe and David Bellow, whose care commitment was central to this process. Scrutiny only works with a strong engine behind it, and that was them. They kept us on track, made sense of complex systems, and guided us through a demanding and often emotional process, so we owe them a huge thank you. I'll be the first to admit I'm probably not a conventional politician, and I'm sure many of you here might agree. But I put myself forward for this role because I deeply care about the community and about doing the work that genuinely makes a difference. And despite all its challenges, this process has been one of the most powerful reminders of why that matters. I think we've shown great strength of what happens when we come together, across party lines, across boroughs, and with respect for a shared purpose. We won't always agree, but we're stronger when we listen, collaborate, and stay focused on the people we're elected to serve. I hope this serves as a reminder of just how effective local politics can be when we work together, and I'm proud of what we achieved as a team. Although this committee has concluded, our scrutiny does not. We'll continue to monitor how this model performs and how it affects local services, and keep fighting to ensure residents receive the mental health care they deserve in both acute and community settings. Thank you.
Councillor Wheel, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're often asked, in fact, even today I was asked, can scrutiny make a difference? I think this is an exemplar of where scrutiny made a difference, and I can say that because I had nothing to do with it, and all the glory and so on belongs to Lucy and to her team. It was a scrutiny of a subject that's really important. Getting mental health services right affects everything we do as a council. It affects our adult social care services, it affects our housing services, to some extent it affects our environmental services. And so it was scrutiny of a very important subject, but it was also effective scrutiny of a very important subject. It exemplified the importance of partnership working at the right scale. Lucy and her team fought to have this done at the by-borough scale, which was exactly the right place to do it, the 2 most affected boroughs, who were going to have the strongest voice and the most influence. It was a scrutiny that was undertaken with determination and attention to detail, not to say a lot of effort on behalf of everybody. 8 extra meetings in 5 months is a not inconsiderable commitment. Particularly when you take note of the amount of preparation and information required. It was an exemplar that rational argument can actually sometimes move people to do things that they don't want to do. And it was also an exemplar in the involvement of the public and multiple voices, making a really strong argument even stronger and really undeniable. So I just wanted to acknowledge the importance of this bit of work, but also the skill and dedication that went to making it so successful.
Would any other member like to speak? Yes, Councillor Simmons.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to really applaud the committee and its chair on this really important and excellent piece of work, which has definitely made a very important difference. I do think it should be fully acknowledged, and thank you for all the hard work. I also want to take a little bit of an opportunity here to raise some issues around mental health, particularly in North Kensington, that after Grenfell, as we all remember, the CCG at that time was given £50 million of public money expressly for the implementation of the coroner's recommendations in her Prevention of Future Deaths report. At the Overview and Scrutiny Committee in May, which is 8 years on, it transpired that none of these recommendations have been implemented. This is incredibly serious. And when you bear in mind that most of those recommendations related to the health and well-being of bereaved and survivors. Meanwhile, it isn't clear how the mental health needs of the immediate local community of Grenfell were budgeted and provided for. Information about support was created but never supplied to the immediate community. At the same time, this is where we have seen too many secondary deaths following Grenfell. This too is incredibly serious. What we're seeing from ICB overall still appears to amount to a continuation of reducing services in North Kensington in particular, where according to the Kensington and Chelsea Foundation's 2023 report, life expectancy is continuing to fall since 2019 and health inequalities are continuing to increase since Grenfell. I see in this report that the JOSC has expressed a number of concerns. It isn't clear from the report whether these concerns have really been heeded by the ICB, given that they've decided to implement form of their model. And if I've understood correctly, the steps now open to the Council and Committee are to scrutinise that implementation and shine a light on its predictable consequences as they transpire. Is this a case of feel the fear and do it anyway? I don't know. But I wanted to raise those aspects, particularly as they pertain to the ICB and to North Kensington in particular, which I know that Councillor Knight is aware of. And again, I just will say thank you very much to the JOSC and all its members and officers for a really excellent piece of work. Thank you.
Councillor Rendell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'd just like to obviously say the similar thing that Councillor Knight, Councillor Wheel and Councillor Simmons has summed up. But as I've said, the committee has done absolutely sterling work to make fundamental change to our local community. And I think that cannot be understated. I appeared, Mr. Mayor, in front of the committee twice, obviously with my lead member hat on, with my colleague, Councillor Butler-Thalasis from Westminster. And I've got to say the committee was extremely thorough, if not a bit scary, I may say so, Mr. Mayor. It was quite intimidating to be in front of them. But I'd just like to thank them for all their dedication and their hard work. As we said, before we started this process, the Gordon was going to have no beds at all, 51, but now the committee in itself has managed to secure 10. We've also secured the MCAS in North Kensington, which also was up for closure. But there's still more to do. The changes to the NHS recently announced with the NHS 10-year plan is a cause for concern. That may have an impact on us locally. We'll probably debate this in this chamber later on in the year. But we need to ensure that the ICB and our local NHS partners do what they say. As Councillor Knight says, I was impressed by members of the committee. They were intelligent, they were extremely dedicated for a job that was above and beyond probably what they signed up for to be a councillor, and it was extremely important to see them in action. I think, as Councillor Knight said, Councillor Abbott was great, Councillor Southern and Councillor Dean from the committee itself, but also my colleagues in Westminster, Mr. Mayor, as I mentioned, Councillor Butler-Thalasis and Councillor Less, who's the Deputy Cabinet Member for Adult Social Care. And she was very impressive as well. And this wasn't about politics at the end of the day, Mr. Mayor. This was about doing what's right for our community. And the committee has tremendously achieved that. as Councillor Knight said, I'm sure the Select Committee will be scrutinising the ICB in due course as a sovereign committee. There are still things outstanding. For example, we still don't really have any idea whether it's going to be 2025 or 2026 when these 5 beds, the 5 step-down beds and the 5 crisis beds will be in operation. Obviously, we want it this year because the Gordon has been closed far too long as it is, but they need to kind of ensure that that is the case, as will I, with a separate hat on. But as I said, this really benefits. It really shows the benefit of scrutiny, how fundamental change can happen from scrutiny, and we changed the national direction of mental health care for this part of London. So I'd like to commend the committee and everyone else that participated in that process. But thank you.
Would any other member like to speak? In which case, Councillor Knight, would you like to sum up?
I think we've heard from everyone, but thank you very much for everyone who contributed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I now ask, does the Council agree to note the report? Can I see all those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? In which case, the report is noted. Move to item 12. So I have notice of 3 questions to lead members. Starting with Councillor Hammond. Councillor Hammond, please put your question to Councillor Thalasitas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is to ask the lead member for Environment and Planning for an update on the Gloucester Road streetscape improvement proposals.
Thank you for the question, and I'm happy to announce that this week I signed off the decision to improve Gloucester Road South. And that works are getting underway later this year in November 2025, with works to be completed in spring next year. It's great to see that there's a £1.5 million investment coming to Courtfield Ward, with new paving, wider footways, more trees, another amazing space in Kensington and Chelsea, building on lots of the others. Beach Street was in your ward, but Chelsea Green, St Helens, Hogarth Road, Hollywood Road. So thank you to you, Greg, also to Janet and Quentin as the ward councillors, and Jem, who led on some of the consultation. It's fantastic that we're still able to keep delivering these schemes.
Councillor Hammond, do you have a follow-up question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I warmly welcome the lead member's response. Is he aware that more than 70% of residents who responded to the consultation supported this, and that therefore this will be widely welcomed in South Kensington? Does he further recognise that completion of the scheme also has a dependency with TfL on completing the safe crossings of Cromwell Road? And will he undertake to continue to encourage TfL to keep that programme on their radar for the next financial year?
Yes, I am aware, and it's great that 78%, I think it was, supported the scheme in consultation. That's a big mandate and shows, again, that Courtfield councillors are very much in touch with their residents, and hopefully we'll be able to deliver for them again here. In terms of what we're kind of calling phase 2 of the scheme, there is a dependency in terms of TfL's agreement. We've had good conversations with them up to now, and we think it should be possible to do what Greg suggests. I certainly undertake to continue those conversations and to keep ward councillors closely informed.
Thank you. The second question is from Councillor Lowry. Councillor Lowry, would you please put your question to Councillor McVeigh?
Good evening, councillors. My question will be phrased as written by my constituent Fabio Fremantle in the email that has been seen by Councillor McVeigh and council officers. Residents of Hazelwood and Adair Towers expressed their deep dissatisfaction with the recent compensation offer. The offer presented is quite frankly insulting when measured against the long-term disruption, stress and impact they have endured over the past 5 years. They were originally told that the works would take 22 months, but it has now stretched to almost 6 years, and they've had to live through constant disruption to their homes and lives. Many residents, including the elderly, disabled, and families with young children, have suffered mentally and physically as a result. Some residents rely heavily on their balconies for fresh air, space and well-being, especially those who are housebound and elderly. To offer £1,400 in total for almost 6 years of disruption is unacceptable. That averages to around £19 a month, a figure that grossly undervalues the severe and prolonged inconvenience they have endured. This is not just about money, it's about being treated with the respect, fairness and dignity they deserve. Therefore, residents are asking the Council seriously reconsider this offer and engage with them to provide a fairer and more meaningful resolution. They'd also appreciate transparency regarding how this figure was calculated and why it does not reflect the scale of the delay and distress caused. Additionally, they believe residents should be given a clear choice in how any compensation is paid, either directly into personal bank accounts or into rent accounts. That should be left up to the individual resident. To conclude my question, if this matter is not fairly resolved, they will have no choice but to explore legal options and bring this issue to the attention of the media. We hope it doesn't come to that. So will the lead member commit to sitting down with residents and actually achieving an acceptable compensation offer before litigation is started?
Thank you, Councillor Lowry. This was the first major project that the Council undertook after we took over housing management from the TMO. And I am clear that it has fallen short of our expectations. And I am very sorry about this. The performance of the contractor, the quality of work and the delays have all been major issues, as your residents have rightly said. And I've been clear with officers that we need to learn lessons about this. And we have to make sure it doesn't happen again. I know this will be little comfort to residents of Adair and Hazelwood, who have had to live through the disruption. So Adair is just under a year delayed, and Hazelwood just over a year delayed from the contract. And the scope of works for the work was to improve cladding, the thermal cladding. And we had new lifts, new balconies, and new windows. But of course, this does cause disruption. But what is not acceptable is, as I said, the delay of just under a year and just over a year. And so we are offering compensation. We're offering £1,400 compensation to each of the households of the 156 flats in the two towers. And I do hear from residents that they feel that this is not enough, and of course I am sympathetic to their arguments. But we have had legal advice on this. And I know that Doug has been in many, many discussions with our legal team about this, and because we are also in certain discussions with the contractor as well, which I can't go into in this chamber. And the compensation at the moment comes out of the HRA, which, as we all know, is partly funded by rent payers. So just to answer your question also about sitting down with residents, yes, there is a meeting on Monday next week, which sadly I can't attend because I'm at another residents' meeting with Lancaster West residents. But Doug and all his team are going to be there with the residents of Adair and Hazelwood. And your specific comment, if I may, Mr. Mayor, about how it's paid in, I'm sure there'll be a lot of flexibility into that. Completely understand that it doesn't have to go into rent accounts. It can go into whatever. I'm sure there will be flexibility about that. But again, those kind of processes will be better discussed with Doug and the residents on Monday night. Thank you.
Councillor Lowry, do you have a follow-up question?
Firstly, I just wanted to say thank you to Councillor McVeigh for acknowledging the crux of the matter, the severity of the issue. That is, first and foremost, a very important thing to then look at resolutions. But residents who have also received their own legal advice, which has stated that compensation owed for such a gravely, lengthily delayed project is far greater than has been offered by the Council. Could the Council be more transparent going forward about what has been negotiated or looked at behind the scenes with regards to, for example, fining those who botched a project, and whether this could potentially be used as an avenue to increase the compensation offer? And my other question would be, how will the council, through its administrative processes, ensure that only those residents who lived and endured the issues will receive the compensation, and not residents who have since become residents of Adair and Hazelwood Tower?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Yes, both very good points, and thank you for your comments. Absolutely, on the last one, I will make sure that that is passed on regarding people who actually lived there and went through the disruption. That is, I'm sure, essential. And you talk about something about contractual negotiations with the contractor. I can say here that they are ongoing, and that the sum that we have agreed for now is a for now sum, and in the future that may well change, but I can't really say any more about that right now. Thank you.
Thank you. The third question I've been notified of is from Councillor Idris. Councillor Idris, please put your question to Councillor Thalasitas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, everyone. With the government now consulting on changes that would take small and medium-sized developments out of local committee hands, impose one-size-fits-all threshold, and tighten performance target based on appeal outcomes, while giving councils less and less control. Can the lead member tell us whether this council will be challenging these proposals, which seem far more about speeding things up for developers than about listening to communities or protecting local accountability?
Thank you, Walla, for the question. These are very concerning plans that the government are consulting on at the moment. To answer your question directly, we will be responding to the consultation, and we are going to object to plans to stop all developments under 50 homes from going to committee, and the removal of the right of call-in for councillors. I know that resident associations are concerned across the borough. I've seen the Kensington Society have been writing to government on this, and I was approached by the Chelsea Citizen just today, so it's obviously percolated into the south of the borough too. I think if these changes go ahead, they should be seen in the wider context. We've got a government now that are taking away funding from local councils and also taking away decision-making power. It's a very worrying trend, and one that it's a pity opposition councillors have left the room, but really they're not part of the debate either yet. It would be great to hear from our MPs on either of these issues about whether they are concerned about KNC losing the right to decide planning committee, to decide applications at planning committee, or if they're concerned that Kasim, even you, might lose call-in powers if these changes are made.
Councillor Idris, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Does the lead member agree that in a borough like ours, where space is tight and even a 10-home development can have a real impact, removing decisions from communities risk cutting residents out of the process entirely? And will they back a clear position that defends the role of local planning committees and protect our residents' right to be heard?
Well, look, Walla's questions are very well placed, and actually this is a great metaphor, because the Conservatives are in this chamber, ready to debate, ready to make decisions, and the Labour government, and now the Labour councillors in this borough, are gone. They have chosen not to discuss these issues. It's not obvious why. They haven't told their residents why they're not in the chamber for this moment. Perhaps it's because they don't have an answer to the question of why residents shouldn't be able to comment on planning applications, why councillors shouldn't have call-in. Perhaps that's Labour policy. I can only conclude that from the fact that none of them are here and none of them wishes to defend it.
I think there was a correction.
Do you have a point of order, Councillor?
Thank you very much. Point order 28.01. What party am I belong to? Why are they saying the Labour Party has all left? People may drink water and they may go to the loo. Okay. That's absolutely allowed. I think they should never make use of they should never make use of a toilet break an issue. And I think it's about time the Conservative Party behave. And this is not the way to behave in a council chamber, Mr. Mayor. So I appreciate that if they do come back and come from the loop.
Can I just close by
I think we're going to move on now. We're going
thank
to move on. It's not a point of order.
And if he wants to debate planning
We're going to move on to the next item. Councillor Thalasitis. Thank you. Thank you. Item 13. Matters of local concern raised under Standing Order 11. Could the following members please speak for up to 2 minutes each on a ward or other live issue that is primarily local in nature? Councillor Preeti Hud. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening all. I would like to bring to the attention of this chamber the 10-year NHS health plan, where there are some major shifts. And one of them is from the hospital to the community. And my concerns are, point 1, closure of Health Watch with local authorities taking up local Health Watch social care functions, and ICB and provider engagement functions taking on responsibilities as well. Having independent scrutiny of the health services provided by the NHS and RBKC is paramount. Point 2, concerned with the abolition of the integrated care partnerships, which is attended by lead members from across northwest London to scrutinise the work of the ICB and its executive. In the future, a neighbourhood health plan will be drawn up by local government, the NHS and its partners, at single or upper tier authority level under the leadership of the Health and Wellbeing Board. The ICB will bring together these local neighbourhood health plans into a population health improvement plan for their footprint and use to inform commissioning decisions. The lack of a formal mechanism to look at the ICB as a whole is very concerning. ICBs will have a more prominent role as strategic commissioners, and they will not directly provide any services. However, there is no extra budget for trusts and local councils to provide what the ICB used to. Therefore, I am pleased that Councillor Knight and Councillor Siren will bring a formal motion on this shortly so this chamber can debate this issue that will impact us all. At the same time, I would also like to take this opportunity to congratulate Councillor Knight on her and her team's brilliant achievement. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Simmons, would you like to raise a matter of local concern?
Yes, I would. Thank you very much. Today, Mr. Mayor, I rise to speak about an urgent and deeply personal issue affecting our young people in Nottingdale and across North Kensington. It has now been 97 months since the Grenfell Tower tragedy, which forever changed our community. But what is less visible than the recent commemorations of the 8th anniversary is the ongoing mental health crisis faced by our young people, those who lost loved ones, friends, family members, those who see the tower every day, and those who carry silent trauma with them. As the tower is coming down, shockingly, no formal mental health assessment has been conducted for children and young people living around Grenfell, despite local data showing that up to 85% have needed support since the fire. As the tower is now being deconstructed, this trauma is being re-triggered daily, yet these young people continue to be overlooked. And that is why I'm speaking today to support and amplify the Space Youth National Campaign. These young leaders have launched their Hear Their Healing campaign, calling for 2 urgent actions. 1, an immediate assessment of the mental health needs of young people affected by the deconstruction of Grenfell Tower. 2, a UK Youth Parliament inquiry into youth mental health and crisis recovery, fully led by young people, to address wider systemic issues beyond Grenfell. This campaign starts here in Nottingdale. It is about empowering our young people to lead the conversation and shape the solutions they desperately need. It is about turning their pain into action and ensuring they are no longer invisible. I urge the Council to stand with Space Youth and to publicly support their Hear Their Healing campaign. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Well done.
Thank you. We now move on to item 14, which is motions. Members will see that there are 5 motions printed in the agenda, and we'll just have to see how many we can get to depending on time. So motion 1 around pension fund money being used for temporary accommodation has been deferred to a later date. Motion 2 is about the borough's green spaces and B superhighways. Would Councillor North formally move the motion and Councillor Idris please second?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I beg to move.
Thank you. I now invite Councillor North to speak on the motion for up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'd also like to thank you for inviting me to jump off a 17-storey building for a charity. One lesson that we should all learn is before you sign up to doing these things, please check how high the building is and the date being September the 11th. What can go wrong? I look forward to it. Thank you. And please do sponsor us all. But raising a serious local matter, in our collective aim to be that best council and that greener borough, we hope that this is a non-controversial motion and on a local issue that we can all unite around. 60 years ago this year, Kensington and Chelsea came together to become our much-loved RBKC. One of the most special aspects about our unified inner London borough was its green spaces, amazing green spaces, from North Kensington to Chelsea, from Kensington Gardens to Holland Park. Our residents rightly value their green spaces, whether they be large or small. Every bit of green space is prized and appreciated. So we can be proud that our joint aim to be greener, we have focused on enhancing our existing parks and are planting more trees. Yes, through council-led initiatives, improving the wonderful Kensington Memorial Park ahead of its upcoming 100th anniversary, but also through our planning committees, very often looking at ways to plant more schemes for planting and public realm to take over those schemes to ensure that they are not left to wilt by developers, but made better over time. With us as a council and us as the ward members pushing to ensure that those new enhanced green spaces are kept in good condition. My ward of Camden and this town hall is sandwiched neatly between 2 great parks, Holland Park and Kensington Gardens. But of course, our pollinating insects and birds need to commute, and they need us to help them to ensure that the bee superhighways give them and the plants the best opportunity to thrive. But colleagues, those pollinating insects are buzzing. They are telling us that they need help, and along with the officers, we can make a difference. I know that this ward, Camden Ward, will lead this challenge, and we are tonight pledging to double the number of bee superhighways in Camden Ward by spring next year. And we've already started with the very popular living roof and the very popular living wall on Jubilee Square. Torcourt this summer will be creating their community garden and inviting nearby residents, often residents that don't have their own gardens, who are welcome to come along and enjoy their garden and their garden club. We will be finding creative ways to fund small projects, and we can make a difference. And now, colleagues, I have a present for every councillor in the chamber tonight. I have a special gift for you from our ecology centre. They have hundreds of bee bombs on offer to every ward. If every councillor just took half a dozen each, think how many we could plant and include in our bee superhighways across every ward. They will be producing a newsletter of great interest to residents and especially focused at young people. So I'm very grateful to my ward colleagues in Camden as we all share the same keen interest on various projects as we look forward to the creation of a new garden green piazza in Notting Hill. Broadwalk Court, their forecourt and Peel Street as looking at greening projects through NSIL funding support. And I'm especially grateful to my colleague, Councillor Idris. I so love the continued commitment that she has given for many years and the ways that she seeks for just that extra little bit of greening on a planning application committee through conditions and informatives. So thank you for that. Thank you, Waller, for seconding this motion and for being a great Green Deputy Mayor. I look forward to working with you on future projects together across the borough. And I do realise that as we plan ahead, there may well be budget constraints for us all, especially in London, as we've heard already from our leader. But our commitment to greening, I believe that we can be more creative, sponsorship from private companies. Opportunity Kensington is working on ways to further green our Kensington High Street. Just look at some of the initiatives in Chelsea, and who's not excited to see what's happening in Lots Road. So, if I may ask the lead member for Property, Parks and Leisure Services to work with planning officers to see how we may use the S106 funds and works in kind agreements to encourage developers and applicants to find more ways to enhance greening in the schemes, focusing on pollinating planting and smaller projects applications as well as those larger ones. And my fellow councillors of party affiliation or independent, please join with us in showing our residents that we can renew our commitment to being that greener borough. Please support this motion and its aims. Let our ecology team and renew our efforts for green and other wards to give our pollinators the chance to buzz more often. And might I just say that while butterflies and bees can't vote, in the next coming months, our residents will be telling us how much the green matters in this space. Thank you.
Councillor Idris, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I rise to second this motion and to thank Councillor North for his tireless work and leadership on greening our borough, especially his commitment to the B Superhighway, which has made a real and lasting difference. 2025 marks 60 years since Kensington and Chelsea came together, a milestone. And what better way to honor it than with bold environmental action. Mr. Mayor, let's mark this anniversary by putting nature and community at the heart of our next chapter. Our residents value green spaces. They care about our parks, our trees, our shared public realm, and more than that, they want to do more. This motion supports them to do exactly that. Whether it's planting on balconies, joining community gardening groups, or simply learning how to help pollinators thrive, we are saying, we see you, we hear you, let's go together. But Mr. Mayor, this isn't just about what residents can do. It is also about what developers must do. We are calling on the Council, on the lead member for Property, Park and Leisure, to push for more, to explore how S106 and working kind can be used to secure greening communities from applicants, greening commitments from applicants, to make temporary green walls a minimum standard, not a token gesture. Let's build green into the way this borough grows. Now, a personal note. I first started thinking about the B Superhighway a few summers ago. I was sitting outside, it was a beautiful day. Ordinarily, you'd expect to see butterflies in that kind of setting, but I didn't. And it struck me, why? Weren't they there? After a bit of research, I found the answer. They were in decline because biodiversity was in decline, because habitat was vanishing. And this isn't just an ecological issue, it's a food issue too. Pollinators play a vital role in growing the food we eat. No bees means no apples, no tomatoes, and no strawberries. Their survival underpins ours. That realization lit a fire. In 2019, I used my platform as Deputy Mayor to create and launch the B Superhighway, a project to protect and improve biodiversity across our borough. And since then, I have championed this cause every step of the way. Today, I am proud to say I do see butterflies and bees and other pollinators everywhere. Not by chance, but because we chose to act. And now I believe it is time for new energy, new ideas, new leadership. Before I pass that baton, I want to take a moment to thank Councillor Elizabeth Campbell for entrusting me with the role of the B Superhighway champion. It has been a great honor to serve in that capacity. And today, with her blessing, I would like to formally hand that role to Councillor North. He has the passion, he has the drive, and I know he will carry this work forward with purpose and care. I will continue to be the queen, he can be my son, or he can be the prince. Let's mark 60 years of RBKC with a commitment that will last longer than any celebration. Let's build a greener borough for our residents, for our future, for the pollinators that help our world bloom. Thank you.
I'll now open the motion up to debate, and I have a few councillors who have indicated that they wish to speak, starting with Councillor Folkes.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Councillor North and Councillor Idris. Bees and wildlife and nature is something that's very close to my heart, and I know it's close to the heart of everybody in this chamber, so it's always wonderful talking on a topic that we can all agree on. But Councillor North talked about unifying, and on Tuesday I went to a most amazing event. It was an event that made my heart sing, because it was a collaborative project that brought together 9 partners within this borough. And I'll list them because I think it's interesting to see who came together. The Design Museum, Opportunity Kensington, RBKC, Historic Royal Palaces, Royal Parks, the Roof Garden, St Mary Abbot School, Tadpoles Nursery School, and I'm sure many others. And I name them all because it demonstrates that nature brings us together. And it's only when we all work together collectively and collaboratively that we can create an ecosystem that works. The artist Daisy Goodwin has developed this algorithm tool that selects and arranges ecosystems, specific plants, to support the greatest diversity of pollinator species. Bees, of course, are only the flagship species for all the other pollinators, wasps, ants, moths, butterflies, and all of them who will be visiting our plants to collect nectar. But they visit at different times of years, which meaning that you need to plant a wide variety of plants flowering at different times. Insects, as you probably all know, use their sense of smell to know when nectar is flowering. And this helps them navigate the bee superhighways. And that's why it's so important that they actually are joined up so that they can travel along them and know where they go. But it was interesting that Daisy emphasised when we saw her on Tuesday that sometimes we have to overlook beauty for practicality and what is right for our insect friends to use them. So using this algorithm, Daisy has designed 4 planter beds in the grounds of St Mary Abbot's Church. And she asked the children of St Mary Abbot School, along with volunteers and members from Royal Parks, to plant the plants. They all admitted it was completely chaotic, as they were all planting at the same time. But having been along there, it was the most wonderful project. And Anne Hewlett, the head teacher of St Mary Abbot, said the school has been genuinely excited in the pollinator project. It's been a fantastic way for children to engage with nature and biodiversity, especially when it's happening on our doorstep. And I encourage everyone here to visit the Design Museum to see the brilliant exhibition that they've got on at the moment called More Than Human, which talks about how we can support environment and nature. The local schools, nursery children, local communities and business volunteers are all being asked to come together and help us support this garden in St Mary Abbots, and actually essentially to monitor the pollinators by doing some citizen science, because we all need to know that they actually are working, and as Councillor Idris says, we are attracting more insects. But I really want to congratulate Monica and Alice from our Ecology Centre, and also Councillor Will, on the outstanding biodiversity action plan, which I think has 30 different actions that we're looking at as to how we can green the borough. It's such an impressive piece of work, and I'm really impressed every time I see that. But I think we need to acknowledge how critical schools are as part of this network. At the moment, there are 11 schools who have all got delivering bee superhighways within their grounds, which is absolutely fantastic. But as well as that, there are school growing programs where they're learning how to grow food from seed, how to deliver meals in the school kitchens, to make school meals. And this program is working with over 1,600 students each year. So I think it's absolutely fantastic that it's such an important thing, because we know growing food, gardening projects, whether they're our residents, our volunteers, our schools, our businesses, we've all got to join part of this and do our part together. There are 3 schools that have actually got beehives on their roofs as well, so it's absolutely fantastic. And finally, I just want to thank our greening team and Anchor, because she's just got access to a nature park grant, which is going to provide £10,000 to 3 different schools to help them plant up more planters and greening measures across their sites. So thank you for this motion. I think it's absolutely wonderful, and we've all got to unite to help our insects. Thank you.
Councillor Simmons.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can actually report that bee superhighways do work. We have our own bee superhighway in Nottingdale, courtesy of the London Mayor's Future Neighbourhoods Fund. And I can report that since we have had our bee superhighways, I have seen more butterflies in Nottingdale than I have done in 30 years of living here. So they definitely do work. No. Regarding the use of Section 106, social value, ENSIL and other contributions, I do feel, though, that surely these should be spent according to residents' priorities, which are likely to be different in different wards. Planners and lead members should definitely not be imposing personal agendas on the use of these monies, especially when planning law already has biodiversity requirements for developers, while the Council already has a number of initiatives as set out in the Council plan. And of course, while this Council, as I mentioned, is also benefiting from the London Mayor's Future Neighbourhoods Fund, one of only 2 boroughs to receive this funding. And therefore, in the interest of supporting our residents and our residents' voices, I cannot support this motion. But, I do thank Councillor North. I do thank Councillor North for bringing the very auspicious occasion of RBKC's 60th anniversary to the attention of the Council. It's telling and so very sad, I think, that to mark the 60th anniversary of RBKC, the best so far that we can come up with is more of the same of what we're already doing and have already committed to. I fear we may have been collectively asleep at the wheel in terms of planning for this historic event. I mean, come on, this is our Platy-Jubes. It's our Diamond Jubilee, to be precise. So where is our imagination? Where is our civic pride? Where is our love for this borough? Bees, yes. Green walls, yes. More of the same. But I think that we can do better. So I propose a cross-party working group be urgently convened to create a borough-wide programme of events and initiatives to create a fitting, restorative and inclusive way to mark this milestone and to celebrate our communities, our residents, businesses and of course our officers who together make this borough what it is, remembering of course our council's guiding principle from Psalm 133. Ecce quam bonum et quam iucundum habitare fratres in unum. How good and how pleasant it is for brothers to live together in unity. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm delighted to speak in favour of this motion. And I can't think of a more fitting way to celebrate our borough's 60th birthday than by supporting nature, supporting green spaces, supporting the environment that we live in and celebrate every single day. I think it's a fantastic motion, and I do want to also pay tribute specifically to Councillor Idris. I know this is a real passion of hers, and it's not just this motion, it's not just today, it has been over many years, day in, day out, getting this off the ground, and I think to culminate today with this motion to celebrate our borough's 60th anniversary is absolutely fantastic. So I pay tribute to her now for that. Now, it is absolutely right that this motion commits us to create a beautiful network where pollinators can beeline between buildings and wing it across our fantastic borough. I also welcome the support for local residents able to plant flowers, extra ways that local people can get involved. This is not just a top-down project, but also a bottom-up project, a project where residents themselves can be part of the action and provide a nectar of hope for biodiversity in this borough. There was also a very important point, I think, was made by Councillor North at the start when he proposed the motion, is that many people in our borough, most people, I would say, don't have private outdoor green spaces, private gardens. My whole time living in this borough, I've never had a private garden or private green space, and so people are so reliant on public green spaces, nature in public, whether it's in our parks or even if it's just out on our streets. So I think it's incredibly important that we continue to support that, and if people are living in a small apartment, working long hours, just the simple joys of coming to the park early in the morning or after work and seeing bees buzz around and pollinate and the life and the nature that exists in our green spaces, I think, Mr. Mayor, would mean a great deal to them. So I think that's an important point to make. And just finally on that point, people's mental health as well. I know just the enjoyment I get from being out in a green space and watching the wildlife, bees, butterflies, birds singing, all manner of nature, really does lift someone up, lifts me up if the day has been hard or things are tough. So it has multiple benefits. It is incredibly important, and I promise, Mr. Mayor, I won't drone on much longer, but I simply want to say, let's build these bee routes now, keep our borough buzzing with life, be the change we want to be, and have our pollinators stinging with joy. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Luckily, there's no limit on puns. Councillor Petit.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm afraid I'm going to extend that limit. More seriously, urban greening is not just a beautification effort. Like what Councillor Lane touched upon, it has tangible benefits for all residents. So a few minutes of research has allowed me to find that studies show that boosting green spaces can slash air pollution by up to 15%, directly safeguarding our health in the process. Green patches act as a natural coolant, which means that during heat waves, they can lower temperature by as much as 5 degrees, which is a welcome relief for everyone, and especially for our more vulnerable residents. And like Will said, a simple stroll through a park can reduce stress and anxiety by up to 25%. So it's much more than a token effort. It's actually well-being and health altogether. Involving residents in these green projects also fosters a sense of pride and belonging, which is incredibly important for our BKC. Evidence has showed that neighborhood greening schemes can strengthen neighborhood ties and even bring down ASB rates. So I'll take Norland, my ward, as an example. In September 2024, Portland Road residents were actively involved in choosing 5 new trees for that road. They helped select the final species from a list, turning what could have been a top-down decision into a true community effort.
The trees were planted in April 2025, and there is not a single day where I can't go to Portland Road and being actually mentioned about the trees. The residents love it, and not just, everyone. We're now kicking off a similar consultation with 3 planters outside the Crossway building. And I'm very confident that the level of resident engagement will be just as strong, if not stronger. Giving residents a voice in this project sparked genuine enthusiasm and cohesion. I must also acknowledge our council's arboricultural team. They do a marvelous job informing residents when trees need to be replaced for safety reasons. And they're always ready to offer advice and support. I obviously welcome the idea of having developers involved, and especially in my ward. Including pollinators, having some green minimum spaces in new development is very important. And in fact, I would say that developers also need to give it a grow. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Benton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, this is, as Councillor North says, pretty uncontroversial in its essence. I'm not going to go for any puns because, to be honest, my mother's name is B, so I'm all punned out at this point in my life. And look, this is lovely, and I don't think you'll find anything actually at the centre of this motion that anyone will find controversial. I don't think anyone really particularly criticises this council for not being green enough and not liking life and nature enough. But I will hammer down a little bit on what my colleague Councillor Simmons said. S106s are there. We have developers, and we all know this, but I'm reiterating, we have developers that for the privilege of operating in this borough, they are unable, for whatever reason, to provide and make good on their social obligations, provide housing for the people that need it in a housing crisis, right? And if there's no housing provided, no payment in lieu, it's other things to alleviate the impact. I don't think any of that is quite frankly appropriate to be put into projects like this. Now, my second point is a little bit broader, but I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I don't understand why this is a motion. I mean, stripped to its essence, stripped to the studs, it is, I'm asking my friend over there, my friend over there, to carry on doing what they're doing, what we agreed to do in 2019 with the staff, continue with the same commitments, and that's it. I don't understand what's actionable there other than the part about S106s, which we've just mentioned. Now, I actually applaud all of these initiatives that have already happened. I think they're great. I also agree that this is not something we should be spending or using S106s for. And I just have to wonder why we're taking what picture it really paints when we take a council motion. We know we don't get through these very quickly. It takes months to get through the agenda, and it doesn't seem to be getting much better. And we're using one of these up for something which just does not need to be a motion. And if we're prioritizing that, and just talking about using S106 money to do these things, which I'm sorry are not the priorities of our residents, I contend. Then it just is another example of this council getting its priorities all mixed up, making motions out of molehills or beehives, if you will. That's my one pun. Thank you very much.
Councillor Isse. Councillor Isse, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and members of this chamber. Mr. Mayor, I strongly support this important motion to enhance greening and expand our superhighways across the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, especially as we mark the 60th anniversary of RBKC. At a time when biodiversity faces increasing threat, this motion offers a clear and positive step forward. It encourages us and our communities to protect our strength, pollinate habitats, while enriching the natural green beauty and ecological resilience of our borough. Mr. Mayor, bees and other pollinators are not just vital to ecosystems, they are essential to our food systems and to the long-term health of our environment. Mr. Mayor, our residents truly value nature and green spaces. They are deeply about our trees, our parks, our gardens, and the shared green areas, and contribute so much to well-being, community life, and our local identity. These spaces are not only beautiful, they are essential to urban life. Yet, Mr. Mayor, we have also witnessed, decisions that run counter to this shared vision. In contrary, with the approval from the Mayor of London, Mr. Sadiq Khan, 6 major beautiful trees were removed in our borough at 100 Kensington by Admore Construction, under the justification of feasibility concerns. But what that really means, so that we have lost part of our natural heritage and vital environmental protection without any clear public benefit. It sends the wrong message at a time when we should be preserving and expanding our green spaces, not reducing or diminishing them. Mr. Mayor, this motion aligns with RBK's Council's broader commitment to being a greener, safer, and fairer borough. By expanding our green corridors and planting more pollinator-friendly species, we are not only protecting the environment, but also improving the quality of life for all our residents. Greening our borough means cleaner air, better mental and physical health, and local government that takes climate responsibility seriously. It also creates opportunities for children to learn, for neighbors to connect, and for nature to thrive, right here in our urban landscape. Mr. Mayor, this is not just about biodiversity. It is about dignity, sustainability, and building a healthier environment, a more inclusive and greener borough for generations to come. Mr. Mayor, I thank my colleagues to bring this motion forward, and I urge all members in this chamber to give it their full support. Let us work together to make RBKC a national leader in urban greening and biodiversity. Thank you so much.
Councillor Hargreaves.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much indeed. And I'd like also to thank Councillors North and Idris for the excellent motion, which I'm pleased to support this evening. This motion urges residents to get involved in greening initiatives and look at how we can promote work in kind through the planning system in our borough. Councillor Fox mentioned the importance of schools in the whole programme of greening and biodiversity. And I would also like to make a plea tonight that we also look to work together with the faith-based organisations in our borough, and in many ways are already engaged in all kinds of greening and supporting the Beast Superhighways in many different ways. And just reflecting, 3 things came to my mind. That firstly, in many ways, greening and caring for the environment is at the heart of much of the work of faith-based organisations and places of worship across the borough. It is core to our faith. For all great religions, protecting the environment in which we live and practice our faith is core to our beliefs. we see that we are mere guardians of this earth, and we have to look after it and care for it to hand it over to future generations. And secondly, right across this borough, places of worship often have green spaces around them and are already engaged in a number of environmental and greening issues. From Almanar in the north to my own church at St John's, Notting Hill, the impressive garden at Brompton Oratory, and to the Moravian churchyard in Chelsea Riverside, places of worship are already caring for the environment in so many different ways. As church warden at St John's, Notting Hill, I was delighted the other day to taste the very first drops of our very own honey produced by the bees that are living in the churchyard, in the church grounds at St John's, Notting Hill. And what amazingly beautiful honey it was indeed. And if you've never been to the Moravian churchyard in Chelsea Riverside, just off the King's Road by Cremorne Estate, I urge you to do. A real hidden gem in the heart of Chelsea. Steeped in the history of Sir Thomas More and Henry VIII, it is a haven of biodiversity and part of the bee superhighway. And thirdly, through the borough's active faith forum and our emergency planning team, we already have direct connections with many of these organisations and many of these places of worship. And I know that they are keen to play their part in enhancing greening across the borough. So, Mr Mayor, in supporting this motion this evening, I would therefore call upon the lead member for Property, Parks and Leisure Services and for Environment and Planning to engage with the faith groups and the places of worship to enhance greening on the Bee Superhighway in Kensington and Chelsea. Thank you very much.
I'm going to go Councillor Hudd and then Councillor Lowry. Councillor Hudd and then Yankson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I didn't list my name to speak, but I feel the urge that I must do so. Following Councillor Simmons and Councillor Benton's remarks on the S106 funds, and that there are better usage for it than a greening initiative. We have a social housing block in our ward, and it's Tor Court, which my colleague Councillor North has mentioned, and we have been the Camden councillors have been incredibly proactive in developing their green space. We have spent a lot of time developing their garden, and to our surprise, it has done nothing but created a very harmonious community spirit, collaboration with officers. They have taken responsibility. They have scrutinized, they have scrutinized the cost of plants. They have scrutinized cost of herbs. It's not just, we will just tell the officers and they'll deliver. No, we have done a chart, Excel spreadsheet that says these plants cost so much and this is all we want to spend. And I have been very, very impressed. Besides that, it has given them sense of pride, a civic pride, sense of responsibility, and all of a sudden, the happiness that it's brought the community of that social housing block, where more and more residents in this current heat wave that we are all experiencing, they have been watering the plants themselves. And I even said, if you can't do it, we can ask the contractors to come and water it. The first response was, no, it's our garden, it's our responsibility. I have had 2 residents who have said that it has had nothing but absolute positive impact on their mental health. And they're so grateful to have outside space. Councillor Lane mentions not having outside space. We underestimate how much outside space can, bring. It's not even it's a space for respite. It can be a space for joy. It can be space for engagement with other members. So I have to say, I think hopefully this will be an exemplar and for the rest of the council of what can be achieved, and actually greening does nothing but unites the community It gives them a sense of responsibility, and I strongly support the motion that Councillor North and Councillor Idris brought to the Chamber, and I thank everyone for their contribution, and I hope everybody will support this motion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Lowry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to start by applauding Councillor North's and Councillor Idris's persistent commitment towards green issues. The two elements raised in this motion, namely the B superhighway and green walls, are long-standing commitments of this council which the Labour Group has been proud to support from the outset. However, this motion has inadvertently, perhaps, exposed institutional flaws in this council's commitment to being greener, safer and fairer, and in the desire to provide vital services to residents in need. We are so lucky to receive literally millions of pounds in developer contributions, which is a privilege for them to operate in this borough. And it is that money which can be used, amongst other sources of funding, for improving our residents' lives. However, this money through NSIL is made available to our residents not on an at-needs basis, but on a geographic basis. The £23,000 available for Goldring residents to bid for NSIL funding to improve the lives of their fellow community members is overshadowed markedly by the £1.068 million allocated to Brompton and Town ward in South Kensington, where there is almost a 20-year life expectancy discrepancy between the two. There surely can be no rational justification in humanity for why one of the most undeprived, privileged areas of the country should have available to it 46 times the amount of money as the statistically most deprived ward in London. So whilst tonight and at successive meetings, the council leadership and majority group members have spent a lot of time deflecting the blame and responsibility on the Labour Mayor of London and on the Labour government, it is the responsibility of those in power locally to look upon yourselves, because there are a plethora of things we can do locally to improve the lives of our residents using developer money. We can start by making NSIL available at an at-needs basis rather than a geographic basis. We can also look at other sources of funding, such as raising council tax on second homes, while we remain amongst the minority of boroughs who have politically chosen not to do that. Councillor Folkes and I were both present a couple of weeks ago at the Kensington and Chelsea Foundation's launch of their new funding initiative to the Philanthropy Circle, which is targeting the more wealthier residents of our borough to contribute towards charitable schemes. So there is a strong appetite amongst residents in the wealthy areas to commit to charitable contributions and to commit to a lot of this council's work in improving the lives of residents. So rather than celebrating our borough's 60th anniversary by planting flowers, we should be celebrating by improving our residents' lives by reducing the life expectancy inequalities between our wards, because that is the hallmark of true Christian principles. And I believe that we can really do much more with our anniversary than what this motion commits to. So very sadly, I will have to vote against.
Councillor Yankson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I rise to ask everybody to support this motion because I think green spaces are crucial. In Redcliffe Ward, we have three, which I'll mention briefly. We've obviously got Brompton Cemetery. As Councillor Lane says, every time I do ward walks, I see people rollerblading with their daughters or having picnics at the North Coffee Shop or just literally sitting down and reading a book. And so the green spaces we have in our, especially in our ward and also in our council area, are absolutely crucial. And I commend this motion for residents to plant a tree or plant a bush or plant a window box to actually help green the whole community. Secondly, there are two initiatives in Redcliffe Ward in particular that I commend the Council for undertaking. The first one is street trees and street planting. There are a number of trees on Harcourt Terrace which invite residents to come and water and support that green. And I think that that initiative in itself should be rolled out more widely across the whole council because it helps local communities get more involved in greening their own area. And finally, we have Redcliffe Square. Redcliffe Square, as most people will know, is one of the few public squares that provide green open spaces to residents that are run by the council. So it's those type of initiatives that the cleaner, greener and safer and fairer council that we're trying to be are actually going to help everybody in this council. And we must make sure that, as Councillor Lane said again, that a lot of people are struggling, times are tough, but it's good that we've got green spaces for people to clear their minds, get some fresh air and get some perspective. So I encourage everybody to support this motion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Would any other members like to speak to this motion? No. In which case, I'll ask Councillor Will as lead member to respond to the debate.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, gosh, many people in this chamber know about my personal passion for gardening plants. So I have to say I am really, yes, wait for it, buzzing with the support and enthusiasm colleagues have shown for this motion. I know just how important, as people have outlined tonight, all our parks and green spaces are to our residents, and I'm really proud of the £7 million investment we have made in the last few years improving all of those spaces. It's really vital. I want to thank Councillor North for bringing this motion and Councillor Idris for seconding it and being our bee queen, and to everyone who's spoken tonight for speaking so passionately. I absolutely support this motion and its request to add to our bee superhighway and also work with planners to create more green walls and greening. And I think perhaps people have slightly misunderstand that the idea here is not to spend lots of S106 money on green initiatives. Part of the motion talks about social value. One of the things we can ask developers to do is to put green walls up during the developments, which I know would really help and enhance the mental health of the people living around those developments. And I would hope really that is something that the Labour group would support because it doesn't affect the S106 contributions. However, sadly, there is a possible sting in the tail of this motion, and I'm not just talking about the fact that Labour colleagues don't want to support it. As the leader, Councillor Campbell, said earlier, the Labour government's proposed fairer funding formula will result in deep cuts to our budgets, as much as £83 million. We will rightly protect all our statutory services, but we cannot guarantee what will happen to our outstanding ecology and greening and park services. We cannot with this kind of level of deep, deep cut. I understand that some people may well think, oh, well, that's just a nice to have. But I do not agree. And clearly others in the chamber agree with me about the importance of all this greening for people's health and well-being. And furthermore, in our habitat survey, when we did a borough-wide habitat survey, we saw a really strong correlation between deprivation and access to nature. And this is particularly acute in a densely built-up borough like ours. So through our ecology service, as well as the Bee Superhighway, people may not realise we also manage the Community Gardens programme and also the Schools Growing programme, which Councillor Folks talked about, and has worked with 2,600 of our school children to date. Many of these children have no garden or outside space to play in. And I have seen firsthand, I was up last week at St Francis School, the pleasure it brings to these children being shown how to grow plants and produce food. So greening and access to nature matters to all our residents. And I really think it's a sad thought that when this government makes these drastic cuts to our budget, that it may affect these services, that are greening services that our most vulnerable residents value so much. So, once again, I want to thank colleagues for speaking out so enthusiastically about making our borough greener. We will do what we can to protect and enhance these spaces for all our residents, whether they be two-legged or two-winged. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Do you have a point of order,
I do have
Councillor?
a point of order on Standing Order 2801 and 2802, if I may.
Go ahead.
Councillor Will there has said that somebody may have been confused or misunderstood. And I would just like to point out that the motion itself, as printed, states, we call on the lead member for Property, Parks and Leisure Services and the lead member for Environment and Planning to discuss with planning officers how Section 106 and works-in-kind agreements can be used to encourage applicants to put up green walls and promote greening in future. So it doesn't actually say anything about B-superhighways. It just says green walls and promote greening. So I just wanted to correct the lead member there that there was no misunderstanding, and if there was, it might have been hers. Thank you.
Okay. I think there's not really a point of order, so you made your point, and we'll move on. I now invite
Mr. Mayor,
Councillor...
sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Standing Order 2802. In any debate, councillors may, by rising in their place, seek to give an explanation of some conduct or speech of theirs that they consider has been misrepresented by the councillor then speaking. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you for making the point of order. You've made your point. I think we're going to move on now. Thank you. Councillor North, as the mover of the motion, would you like to respond to the debate for up to 5 minutes?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm grateful to my colleague, the lead member, for her words of support. And I think it is a poignant point that has been made this evening by our leader and others that we are facing a financial challenge in the future. And I, for one, whether I be the king or the queen of bees, want greening to be a priority for this council. It is a priority now, and we hope it will be for the future. I'm sorry, genuinely sorry, if my colleagues in the opposition benches can't support this. And I'm grateful to Councillor Folkes for... I'm grateful for Councillor Folkes to offer us all some words that nature should bring us together. I'm also grateful to Councillor Simmons for pointing out that the B superhighways in her ward are thriving, which is good to hear. And Councillor Lane also highlighted that it would be a good thing for our borough to focus on greening, and I think our residents would agree with him. I'm also grateful to Councillor Petit for talking about some of the issues and the trees in Portland Road. I'm going there with you soon, I promise. And Councillor Benton, I'm really sorry that you can't agree with this, but I'm really pleased that Councillor Issy from your own ward does support greening, and I'm sure the residents in Colville World will be very pleased to know that. Yeah. And Councillor Hargreaves mentions a very poignant point. Colleagues, let's. Colleagues, we're almost at the end of the meeting. Let's just quieten down and listen to Councillor North. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm grateful to Councillor Hargreaves for bringing in the very valid point about faith groups being included in this, and I think that's very important as well. In my own ward, the St George's Church very much is involved in that, and they run a gardening club themselves. I'm grateful also to Councillor Hudd for raising to a very good point. I mentioned Tor Court in my own ward as an example we're very familiar with. When we first were elected a few years ago, it was full of drug dealers, mopeds, dog mess. Now it is a thriving community garden that other residents are going to share, and that's because of an initiative bringing residents together on a greening initiative. Councillor Lowry, I'm really sorry that you think a better way to mark the 60th birthday of the Royal Borough of Kensington-Chelsea is to increase taxes on residents, on second homes or otherwise. So I will support a greening motion over increasing taxes.
No, I'm not going to accept that, because that's not what I said. 28 OTs, I said
Councillor,
to alleviate poverty would be a great way of celebrating. I said one of the ways the council leadership can improve their services is to raise second home council tax. That was a completely different point.
Councillor Lowry, can we please let Councillor North finish summing up the debate? Councillor North.
Thank you. And I know a lot of my residents will be watching this online, and I will repeat again, Councillor Lowry said that he would like to see a different way to mark the 60th birthday, and what I heard from him was he would support raising taxes for residents.
Then you're deaf, because that's not what I said. That's not what I said.
That's what I heard, and I think that's what anybody watching this would hear. And I'm grateful also to Councillor Yankson for raising the Brompton Cemetery. It is a place that many of our residents appreciate, and it is where the community comes together to support these type of things. And I think that it's a shame that we can't come together, as Councillor Folk says, to be united on this. I genuinely thought this was a very simple motion to bring people together to support greening. And we have to face reality. Yes, it is the money, because the government is going to take it away from inner London boroughs. And if you've got to take the money from somewhere, you can't just keep increasing taxes for people. Yes, you can. I'm sure you can. I'm sure the Labour Party could. I'm absolutely convinced of that, and our relatives are as well. But we are a low-tax council.
Colleagues, it's getting late. This isn't a conversation. Councillor North, could you please conclude your remarks?
I will conclude by saying thank you for my colleagues for all supporting this motion, and for those that don't, I am sorry for that. And I sit. Thank you.
I will now put the motion to the vote. Could I please see all those who are for the motion? Could I please see all those against the motion? Are there any abstentions? I therefore declare the motion carried. We're almost at 9:30. I understand from the whips that there's no desire to extend the end time of the meeting. Is that correct? Agreed. So we move to item 15. Do the group whips have any amendments to propose? I'm not aware of any. No. So we then move to item 16. There is no urgent business. Sorry? Yeah.
We're always going to stay, Mr. Mayor. Just carry on, please.
Colleagues, before I close the meeting, it was remiss of me in item 3 in announcements not to mention the marriage of Councillor Thalasitas to the lovely Jess. On the 28th of June at Chelsea Town Hall, I believe. Yes. So I'm sure you'll all join me in congratulating Johnny and Jess and wishing them a long and happy marriage together. And on that happy note, we draw a conclusion to this evening's meeting. The next meeting of the Council is scheduled to be held on the 22nd of October, starting at 6:30 p.m. In the meantime, I wish you all a very happy and sunny summer holiday. Good evening.